How good are you at forgiving people?
Not good. I'm going to be honest. I'm not good.
Okay, well, today you're going to get better because I have to apologize for something.
Okay.
I lost our first episode.
No. No, where'd it go? Into the ether?
It is into obscurity.
Into obscurity?
Somebody has the wealth of information of 1,000 years.
Oh my God. I know I have to take notes of what happened.
It was a really good episode. And I was also really proud of it. And this is part of what I want to talk about.
Okay.
I really dislike loss and losing things.
Yeah.
And I especially seem to have a habit of losing things I really care about sometimes.
Oof.
Because I put a little too much emphasis on them. This is like a classic thing.
Okay.
You know, like you don't chase a cat if you want to catch it. That's like the same thing going on here.
Okay.
So I basically have realized that like the more you care about things, if you over care, it kind of disappears really quick or you take like a loss on it.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know, because you can't become obsessed with something, I guess.
Well, let me say that I do forgive you. I thought in this case, I do. I think maybe when I said I don't, I'm thinking of the parts of myself on very interpersonal levels. But in this case, what I don't like is guilt. I'm very anti-guilt.
Yeah, guilt is whack.
Guilt is whack.
Yeah.
So I don't want you to feel guilty.
I was soaked in guilt that I lost it, I promise you.
Since when did you know?
Oh my goodness. All right, you got to hear this story.
Okay.
So
I can see. I had
a lot of work and like things to do that were not exciting coming that weekend.
Okay.
A lot of tasks. And there was one thing that I was like, I cannot wait to do is sit down and edit the podcast. I'm like, I'm actually hyped to do that.
Right.
So Friday, ahead of schedule, I was like, let me try to get there instead of Monday. I had a thing for Monday. I was like, let me get here for Friday to edit in here and like download it.
Right.
I had it in sweatpants pockets. Shallow pockets.
Wait, like on a USB?
On an SD card.
Oh, it's like physically lost.
Yes.
Wow.
It's like meta.
It is meta. Wait, so you had an SD in your sweatpant pocket on the streets of New York. It could be anywhere.
It could be truly anywhere.
It's like in a pigeon's nest right now. It's like probably.
It could be anywhere, and I tried to find it by retracing my steps very diligently over a long time because I was like, yo, this is going to teach me mad lessons. And it really did. This was like 2 weeks ago now. Like, yo, you don't even know. Like,
what I feel is your anguish over this, and so I want you to be assuaged.
It's more resolute now. Like,
it's more.
I've come to grips
you
with it.
You found the stoic angle,
right?
of this
to the point I'm making content about it. You know, like
that's
it's something that I really cared about.
Right.
In anticipation, in the moment, I appreciated it as it was happening.
Right.
And then I'm like, I can't wait to like create something out of it.
Right.
And I mishandled it by being too like hasty about everything. Not just concerning it, just in general. Like
the hasty pocket. That could be the name.
Right, exactly.
Wow.
Like the missing hasty pocket mystery episode.
Yes.
Down to earth.
Yes. What can we take away? We can take away things. We have to be careful with the things in which pockets we put them. Right.
Oh, like I heard the voices in my head from growing up, like put it in a zipper pocket. Put it in a zipper pocket and make sure
close to your chest.
Fold it up in a napkin. You put your initials on it.
Yeah, you did raw SD card. They're like this big.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we have to use that for this. And
this
is the extent.
Oh, wow.
This is the extent of what happened with like that in context.
Okay.
That day that we recorded, I had the option. I was like, I could have brought my laptop and like
double.
Like done it here. And I'm like, why do I like remember so vividly my decisions in these moments to do something?
Oh, okay.
It's like, bro, you consciously know like you're gonna do something, even if it's against like your better judgment. But it's like our judgment's not really there yet. We haven't done it before, so it's like I don't really know. You take these stupid risks that in hindsight, it's like, why did I do that?
Why did I do that?
And I knew that I was gonna do that, and I knew I shouldn't have done that. But like I didn't really know because I didn't know better. I didn't know
Yeah.
better to do better.
Yeah. Well, you just named it.
It's such like a silly thing. I'm like, yo, like this is some little kid shit. Like I used to lose like my house keys as a little kid in middle school.
Oh my,
like
in New York?
basketball court.
There you go.
Yeah, I mean, there's just 2 keys. Like no one knows where they go.
Yeah.
But I would lose them all the time, and I would always get new copies. Like it was like a weekly thing. I'm like, yo, the pockets of basketball shorts. Like when you're in the park, all you have to have is your
That's
keys.
so funny. Men
like-
in pockets, yeah.
I used to try to put on my shoelaces.
I'm saying women never put anything important in a pocket.
Like you can't play basketball with it on your finger. Like there's nothing you can do.
This is
Should've put it
why
on a chain.
you put it on a chain. Or
Yeah,
you get
but
a little,
the guy
you get a
playing
little,
with keys on his neck like a dweeb.
what? See, the pride. Pride cometh. Pride
All
cometh.
right, come on, we're talking about like 14-year-old me.
Who is obviously resounding into the present, apparently.
He never left.
He never left. Yes. Well, that's so, first of all, I love that it's physical. So physical ST gone in the pocket, on the streets. Well, I guess
What was
now.
going through my mind? Oh, I
Yeah.
will tell you.
Yeah.
A lot.
A lot.
Well, when you're looking
Regret.
around for like 45 minutes straight trying to see a black SD card, it becomes like a psychedelic trip.
Yes. Tell me more.
It was like 9 o'clock in the morning.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
It was so early in the morning. I'm like, yo, okay,
That'll
I'm gonna
make
get
the
everything done,
screeches.
and then I'm gonna be able to come to MNN and edit and like, let's go. And then within like 10 minutes, this was the really bugged out part.
Wait, did you lose it while you were walking?
No, I was on a bike. And that's when I think I may have lost it. I'm like, yo, when could I have really lost it? Because on a bike, it's not like how would it have fallen out of my pocket? It's a total mystery.
Did you ever put your hands in your pocket?
When you lose something, you really don't know where it went. So, you're kind of like, it's fixed.
Did you ever put your hands in your pocket, like to get anything else out?
Yeah, I
Bought it.
counted this like so many times.
Yeah.
I'm like, here is where I did this. I went into the store and I went like full detective mode.
Wow.
So I was on the bike though,
Yeah.
and I felt like I felt it fall out. And I'm like, wait, that's impossible though. But then in that moment, like I checked, I was like, oh nah. Like
did.
it actually isn't there.
Oh, you had an intuition to like check your pocket?
Yeah, but it's like it had to have been intuition because like you can't actually feel.
Wow.
An SD card is like
Yeah.
like a Nintendo.
Your spirit
DS.
guides were like,
They're like, bro, we gonna make you learn this lesson. I'm just letting you know we dropped that a whole while back.
we dropped it a while ago. Though I would love if it's like still
Hey, bro.
in a corner of a bodega right now.
It's gonna be 30 years from now, and I'm gonna be like, well, maybe nobody picked it up.
No, it's
Like,
going to
how
be
would they
sitting
know
there.
what it
If
is?
I was writing this movie, it will be found. Like literally, you're going to go back to that bodega and then you're going to see it.
It's like the
underneath.
rats of New York evolved into this proto-human species, and they like acquire intelligence from this one podcast, and they're like,
They put it on there like the little rat SD player. Yeah.
down to earth has taught us the way.
And that's the thing. And we would have no idea.
Because it
This is
fell on
like-
the street. It got swept up by the garbage.
If it fell in the
something.
street, yeah. It is in the sewer, most likely.
Something can find that. It can mutate. Like these things don't biodegrade.
I would love to think it is like in a pigeon's nest. You know, like they thought it was like a natural product and like tried to tuck it in.
Or the CIA.
I don't even know if pigeons have nests, I'll be honest. The CIA?
What did they do with my SD card? Hey, look. I'm not gonna put on a tinfoil hat, but look,
hey, it's
a
suspicious.
lot of the powerful leaders, they've come after us in different ways, you know?
I know, they co-opted sweatpant pockets, I think are the
They
real...
made me make that choice. And I was like,
Yeah.
why did I choose those
Yeah.
that day? Like, why did I suddenly, like...
It all comes
It's
back.
a conspiracy. It's a
It is.
self-induced conspiracy, but I
Yes.
think the CIA has something to do with
Yeah,
it.
you like you red-pilled yourself.
Much like crack.
Wow. Well,
And much like 10 of the leaders of the 60s within like 5 years. Also like that.
like all in one foul swoop. Oh my God. I'm taking this
What
all
is that
in.
saying? All in one fell swoop?
I think it's fell. I actually don't really know what the saying is. I think
It
is it
is
foul or
something like that.
fell?
It's
I'm
probably
sure I'm using it
Shakespeare.
wrong.
He came up with all of them.
He did. Oh, I think someone will research this after, but like, I think he might have been the one.
He came up with all the
He's a
names.
good default. He's a good guess. He's a solid guess. I know he
You
came.
said guest at first. I'm like, yo, Shakespeare on a podcast would go crazy. It'd be like, bro, you speak like this?
Yeah.
Like you speak.
But I mean, he invented
In
so many
language.
words that we use. Not
Like,
really
how do you
anymore.
just speaking your own language, and it's like that makes so much sense. And when you put it in writing, it's like, yo, I really get it.
I get it. Did you
just get it.
easily read Shakespeare in high
I
school?
wouldn't say easily. I enjoyed
But you got it.
I got it, and I enjoyed it. I'm like, nah, he's tough.
He's said, but you know what? If you get rhythm,
The story is crazy. Like
The stories are
writing's one
crazy.
thing. Like, you know, we could nerd out on that, but the story itself is like, yo,
really good
they all inspired like everything else. That's like modern story.
because it's all metaphor, a big metaphor. What Shakespeare did
But
you
it's
read?
still like pretty vivid.
Yeah, I think it's
Hamlet is like, to me, like super vivid because it's like death is involved and stuff, and it's like
Right.
dark.
and like the father figures and mortality and manhood and the crown.
Yeah, I like those themes. You know, like
Yeah.
those are themes that
They're
I
eternal.
quite
They're eternal. Oh my god.
hone in on.
But I think it's easy to actually read Shakespeare if you have a good sense of rhythm, because I think the language doesn't sound that crazy. If you hear it.
Sometimes it's fine to I find that rhythm. Like it's like, bro.
I mean, it's an old rhythm. It's not like
a ye old.
ye old rhythm. Wow.
Bro, Shakespeare's tough.
You know, but there is a great Shakespearean image of you searching the street hopelessly
Yo, word. Or is that
For-
like Kafka?
for memories.
It's like sad New York
yeah, that's
street.
more Kafka, right? Because it's just like the absurdity
It's
of the
absurdity
system.
and like the bleak reality of
That
like,
there's no
At a
escape.
certain point, I was just like, yo, like there's nothing I can do. I either
Yeah.
own it or I continue. It's
Yeah.
like I keep adding in coins in the slot. It's like, bro, are you really
Yeah.
gonna get it? Like
That
there's
is,
only
like,
one chance.
lost.
It's crazy. Loss is crazy. So I'm like, okay, I went through that day
Yeah.
as if I lost something in someone and was kind of like, you know, it's the same systems.
It is.
Like I've gotten better at it through the years. Like that was something I don't think I dealt with well as a kid.
Oh, and you got
Like some tragedies would happen to me as a kid, like perceived tragedies or like, you know, trauma, of course. But like perceived tragedies, like this kid one time stole my Game Boy in IKEA in New Jersey. I was like 3 years old.
Oh wow.
I was playing Game Boy and this kid deadass just took the Game Boy out of my hand. And I was like, you know,
Cold.
I was cooked. Like I was like, yo, it's over. Everything it's over.
Right.
When you're 3 years old and you like play Game Boy, it's like
It's the end.
the year 2000. It's like, bro, you don't have anything else outside of that.
Snatched it out of your hands.
Yeah. I mean, he was like an older kid. He was probably like, I don't
He
know,
could do it.
maybe 7, 8, 9.
Wow. And the injustice.
I mean, that's like old school stuff though. Like that used to happen. There's no things like that anymore. So like that's like,
Robbery.
I mean, tragedy. People don't experience that. It's very comfortable. You know, there's like constant tragedy, so to speak, which is
Yeah.
like relative
But
poverty and
visceral
stuff. But
tragedy?
like,
Is that what you mean? Like visceral tragedy? Like
I mean, I think like perceived, because for certain people, like, you know, a Game Boy is like, come on, bro. That's like ironic.
yeah.
But I mean, to me,
Yeah. It's still fresh.
like, yeah. I mean, you can see it. My eyes are glazing over.
You know why though? Because like kids have a great sense of justice. So if you ever see like little kids, like
Yeah, true.
3-year-olds read the amount of
Yeah, I mean-
injustice he must have felt. in that
Right.
moment.
Because it wasn't just that, like, oh, I lost the thing. I kind of made it seem that way. But it's also more like it was a tragedy because it was so sudden. And, you know, it was like,
Unjust. Like he just took
right,
it.
exactly.
There's
I had
no
just
explanation
developed
for
my
it.
moralities and they were broken in an
Yeah.
IKEA.
And there's no good explanation for that. You know what I mean? Like
Life.
he did it because he could,
Exactly.
and that's messed up. Did you ever get a back? He just,
Me over you. 0-1.
and then you never saw it again.
No.
Wow.
Yeah. And I remember this other time I lost. Well, I didn't lose.
Wait, did
More
you tell
tragedy.
anybody?
Did I tell anyone about this? I
Yeah.
mean, maybe a therapist. No, I'm playing.
No, but like in the moment. You're like,
Oh, yeah. My parents knew, of course.
wow.
And it was like, you know, I mean, they were right there. They just kind of like, you know, you leave your kids sometimes in the IKEA for a little bit. It's like, but this is what happens, you know, watch your kids.
But were they sympathetic in the moment? Can you remember?
I'm very analytical. So like my parents are like, I could explain them very richly.
Yeah, no. But do you just remember that moment of like that, or did they just be like, well, you know?
They are always going to compensate and kind of like mediate rather than necessarily let me feel the burn.
Yeah, that's okay. That's what I was asking. Really.
But sympathize with is something that is like,
right.
it's different.
Yeah.
it's like a different muscle.
Yeah.
And so that one is a little more rare.
Yeah.
It's like linked with compassion and stuff.
Yes. Okay.
And empathy rather than sort of like practicality and situation.
Yeah. Wow.
It's just a mode of being trained to love and like help and share.
Or like to teach the lesson.
And to teach.
Even though sometimes
To teach above all.
That's not what the little kid needs all the time, right? They don't need the lesson. They just need the recognition of loss.
You can give them a lesson every time, but you always got to give them the sort of...
Yeah. They need, I think we need...
You know best. The only pain is to you. If you're a parent to your child, the only pain and setback is yours.
Interesting. Okay. I think I want to know more about that. Like, what does... Go further.
I think the instinct is to come out with like an extreme example of what I just said. Like, say a child is severely disabled. These things are only as difficult for the child as they are for the parent.
Okay.
For what the parent provides them in, you know, their environment, their abilities. You know, there are certain setbacks that people have, but everyone has setbacks and they're kind of relative. And for a child, they don't know what is, you know, supposed to be. There is no supposed to be. It's just relative. So as a parent, if it's not a problem to you, so to speak, then it isn't a problem.
Yeah, but I think that that's what can be damaging. Not damaging for kids, right? Because in that moment, sometimes they don't need the parents' reaction. They just need the recognition that something happened to them.
Acknowledgement.
Wow. Okay.
People like to feel heard. Their emotions like to be heard.
Yes.
And that's super valid, and it's very useful.
Very valid. It's very prescient to where we are today.
What word is this? Yo, we're gonna have to like recurring put up your vocab. Because I like words, but like prescient is crazy.
I just had like a crazy middle school teacher who was like really hardcore.
She made you like write down all the...
Yeah.
Those are good teachers though.
I know.
The SAT
Shout out
vocab.
Miss Stanley, wherever you are. What's up, Jersey? Yeah. Prescient just means like it's like of the time. Like it's happening right now.
Timely.
Yeah, it's timely. So when you're like
prescient.
Yeah, prescient.
It's almost word, like right? Precious.
Yeah, prescient. It's a beautiful word.
Or like sentient.
Yeah.
Because
I'm sure they're connected.
The suffix. No, I'm playing.
Yeah, that's probably it. Like
probably.
There's probably something there.
People go to school for 4 years for English, so like it kind of makes sense, or more than that, a lot more than that.
Yeah, I mean, I just remember like having to do. These are so funny. Like as you get older, like. My fallback words, I read your newsletter, by the way. I love how you define cumbersome, because I love that word. But I like that you...
Another prescient vocab word is cumbersome.
That word's so good.
Society is cumbersome.
Yeah, but I like that you define it, because it was like, oh yeah, like most people probably don't know that word. But like, I don't know, in middle school, I remember having to like, you had to... This is so crazy. Like you had to... learn the definition, be able to write in a sentence, and be able to come up with like 3 synonyms. It was just like a weekly thing. Like I feel like the hardest class I ever took in my life was like 6th grade language and grammar. It was so intense. But because of that, I'm older and I still remember that word prescient. So I guess...
Yeah, they don't leave you.
Yeah.
Because then you start to use them. They start to explain more nuanced emotions and situations in your life that you've experienced before.
Yeah, and I am concerned about our literacy as a collective. I feel like that's definitely declining.
I think concern would be a bit of an underwhelming reaction.
Yeah.
For literacy, I mean, that's flat. Gone. Yeah. But in terms of like...
People use the same 12.
Competence?
Yeah.
That's like a lower bar, and that's gone, yo.
Well, I'm worried because it's like I think it's like neutering the ability to speak on things deeply because people just use the same 12 to 15 words for everything. Have you noticed that?
Words such as
just like awesome. That like I don't know, just really flat. Text speak. Yeah.
You could say tech or text because people text that way.
And they also are only speaking in like cultural meme language, which is like a way, I think, like socially to like ping off each other, right? But if everyone's just like, oh, cutesy demur,
you just like plug in.
Yeah. I'm just fascinated by the loop of it, where you don't get dynamic language.
People don't interact.
I know my father just texted Kennedy's speech to me for some reason. Well, we know the reason, but I was reading the speech. I was like, oh damn, this is a really well written speech. You're never gonna hear this today in any form. And so yeah, this is a total sidebar.
The more exposure you have to media, public facing media especially, you kind of dilute everything language related.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, because I think 30 years ago, if you're listening to public radio, you're like, well, there were more words. It just feels like there were different, a variety of words.
It's colorful.
Colorful language.
AM radio is now, was then the way that you got entertaining interactions of humans that were real, but still entertainment.
Right.
So it's not like what podcasts are. What we're doing is not really AM radio. It's educational, informative, entertaining.
Yeah.
It can even be fun. Podcasts can be damn, that was a fun podcast, a fun conversation. But AM radio is theater of the mind.
Theater of the mind. That's interesting. Yeah.
But that sort of conversation and interactions, those existed. Now they are almost fictional in real life. The dynamics of and the speed and pace of conversation and interactions.
Yeah.
They did happen movies or TV shows where it's damn, there's action in every sequence here.
Right.
That's how things were. It just seems so far out because it's nowhere near that now. And you see it in culture and TV from the past, and you may even remember it. Right? People can remember this.
I know we're the last.
The very last, because a lot of people kind of checked out by now.
Yeah, the bridging generation, maybe? Yeah, I do remember that. I feel like I remember that. Yeah, this is an interesting theme of loss. It's, well, one, I forgive you. I don't want you to feel bad in any way. I also know that feeling of utter despair come crashing down.
Yeah, well, this is the thing. I think despair is subjective.
Right? All the little decisions that you can just do the math.
Yeah.
You're standing on the street.
Exactly. You start calculating and then you see all the... Yeah, so it's not really despair like that if you think through it for long enough. You kind of just put your head in the freezing cold water. It's
there's physics to it. There's an explanation.
It's inertia.
Yeah, it's one decision led to another decision led to another.
Especially when there's expectation and anticipation.
That was eclipsed by what you said, the hurrying Shakespeare line.
Yeah.
What's that? Oh, what's the line? It's he that, there's a line from Romeo and Juliet about don't hurry or you're gonna fall over, which I just butchered into American English today.
That sounds more text speak.
Yeah, text speak, where it's a priest says that to Romeo as he's trying to run off, and it's you gotta slow down, my guy, because you're gonna fuck something up if you keep running at this speed. And that's supposed to be foreshadowing for what's gonna happen, right?
So I started with the bad news. I have really good news in the form of information that is life-changing, transformational, and OD meta as fuck.
We can only go up. So.
It is so elite.
Elite? Okay, you hit me.
And it has to do with the last thing that you were saying.
Okay.
The taking the wrong step in life is usually out of anticipation and expectation.
Okay.
You take a step thinking you can make the step. You actually expect it. If you do that, and if you especially do it hastily, you can trip and fall. You can get injured. You can... So many actual things. And that whole impulse kind of starts from, doubt and fear. And so it all starts with your neck, right? The back of your neck, the back of your skull. There's this little area, this little pocket where the neck holds the skull. Like a fulcrum. That's how it works.
Right.
So all movement in space starts with that. All energy and movement starts from there. So if things start from elsewhere, such as an anticipatory step, a too quick step, now you're leading with anticipation and it causes instantly And, you know, that's why I use injuries as the example to show people it's like you're doing explosive movement you thought you could do, which you weren't prepared to do because you were too anticipatory about it. You can do that with decisions and really anything in life, because that is what you're doing. Like, all thought starts here, but the thought influences the impulse, and the impulse influences, it powers the movement. Where the movement comes from is, it's supposed to be here every time. If it comes from anywhere else, like, that's like where the glitch is coming from. It always starts here. The movement starts with the neck.
I love this. I'm with it.
Okay, now that you're with it.
Yeah.
I didn't make this up. This is a thing.
I would have supported you.
No, I mean, I got some wild concepts and I'm like, but no, this is called the Alexander technique.
Oh.
So
I had a lot of actor friends.
Right, actors and vocalists, because it's a vocal technique to kind of expand the trunk
In the diaphragm.
and open everything up like a giant tube to make you more resonant.
How did you find the Alexander technique?
This guy who writes a Substack about the Alexander technique and how it makes your life like better.
Oh.
Like, that's the best way I can put it. Like, if you learn how it works and you can feel it and apply it to yourself, like, it's movement through space. That's all it really is.
That.
And so this dude, John, at least focuses a lot on bones. I don't know how much the Alexander technique is like not bones or not, but like, he's a bones guy.
How bone related is this? Yes.
Like, basically, like, people talk about muscles a lot and like tendons, like all these things. They're important,
but it's really
like,
about the
bones.
Okay.
Hold like pretty much all the weight. Like, it's crazy. But I mean, when you think about it, not really. Like, that's what they're meant to do. That's why they're like.
That's so.
Yeah. So that's the main thing, is like you focus on relaxing this back part of your neck, because that's where movement originates from, because like the weight of your.
I literally am unconsciously moving my neck right now.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's what people do. People like try to like get good posture and stuff, but it's like.
Yeah.
There's not good posture. There's kind of like
It's your
looseness and
C1.
relaxation.
If you're going over, I think it's C1. It's like the beginning of your spine.
Yeah, probably something like that.
Wow.
And just like relax that area.
Relax.
And then like everything else relaxed at all times until you need to.
How much neck tension do you think you have? I have a lot.
A lot less since I learned about this.
A lot less since 2 days ago. Yeah. I believe that also because that's so funny you bring this up. I was reading, I have a book in my bag, which is like the anatomy of yoga, because I was rear-ended.
These are hand in hand.
Yeah, these are all hand in hand. I was rear-ended in May. That's all your neck. That
Whiplash.
wasn't whiplash, right?
Yeah.
And I know that something's currently wrong, because it's not like it's not relaxing. So there's probably something out of alignment. But I was reading this book where it talks exactly about that, like the development of the human spine, the curvature, which is related to like how we're birthed into the world, right? That's crazy to think about. But that it's all about gravity, right? And the Alexander technique is basically like your bones in space. Like, what is the most efficient functionality of movement?
Exactly.
So no resistance.
Yes.
And when you hurry, there is resistance in hurrying. And that's why you trip.
Patient intention.
Yeah.
That's some Shakespearean shit.
Yeah, he'd be proud. I think he'd be proud of this metaphor.
Bro, it's so meta. Like, all of this stuff, I feel like I'm just like uncovering truths that are like,
right.
You know, they're not new necessarily, but it's
but
like
you can
they
connect
make
them.
So much sense for right now.
Right now being our
like,
age?
Modern, well, like postmodern, post whatever society.
Yes.
Like right now, certain things are very valuable.
Like
sanity. Let's say that. How do you keep sane? A whole lot of ways, okay? Not anyone has really figured it out.
Yeah.
But that's what we're all trying to do here.
Yeah. Woo. Yes. I think this is going to also be more difficult going forward. I don't know about you, but I constantly have had a pressure since COVID of like, how do you stay calm constantly enough to make sure you're, in alignment with the back of your neck at any given time and not being under the compulsion of anything else.
It's like a helicopter. So it's like your helicopter like guides the whole movement of your body.
Yeah, we need this together. I really believe this as we go forward as a group, the big H of humanity. Yeah. because
Why
we
is
need
this
it.
the big age.
The big H, like all the yeah, the big H. It is probably the big age. It's like mapless. That's what I'm curious about, like this idea of like maplessness.
Like the blueprint. Like there's no blueprint of
there's no
that
blueprint
type of map.
Yeah, like it's amazing, right? That like you can sit in 2024 and like be able to understand the Alexander technique while understanding astrophysics, while understanding Shakespeare.
But now what to do next?
What do we do? Yeah, what do we do with all this information? And I do not believe in determinism in any way. Like I do not therefore believe that something good will come. The deeper possibility, right, is that any possibility. That's also physics, right? Like it's all just variables in alignment, and what the outcome is can show up in different ways. And we're literally living in it as like dystopia becomes more visible, more and more visible.
I think it will feel more familiar.
Yeah, well, that's the tension, right? Like if it gets so familiar, it gets comfortable.
And you forget about the past. It's like, I kind of like this.
I kind of like this.
Always adjust and adapt. I mean,
you're always adapting.
Humans. Like other animals don't adapt.
Yeah,
we do that. Like,
we do that
for all the other things other animals do infinitely better than us. We adapt to new context better than any animal. Animals get stressed out like a motherfucker and die sometimes.
Right.
We do too. But bro, we can adjust.
We can adjust
to anything, and sometimes we deserve to be adjusted.
What does that mean?
Sometimes we deserve go sit back down. You've hit the guardrail.
You've hit the guardrail. I don't know. I'm like not convinced there is a guardrail anymore, I think.
We're about to blow the guardrails out.
Yeah, I think this is, but it's funny because it's like everybody's hastily Googling breath work, trying to calm down, I think, in what's happening. Yeah, I guess there is a part of me, the academic part of me, that's like, that knows there's not really enough adaptation that's probably going to happen. Like, and this is a kind of a great experiment of how much dysfunction, because that's the other thing, right? Alexander's technique is talking about dysfunction. Everybody's health apps are really talking about dysfunction. Everybody's central nervous system obsession is about dysfunction. And because it's like also mirroring the dysfunction that they're seeing in society, which is incoherent, right, at this point. So like people are making those connections of like inner and outer. So it's like inner dysfunction, outer dysfunction. But then you kind of do hit that guardrail of like, how much can you adapt? Like in the climate world, the idea of like wet bulb is the idea of like, there is a biophysical threshold in which the human body cannot cool itself down in certain conditions of humidity and heat. They call that the wet bulb. Mm-hmm. So if it's like 90 degrees and 90% humidity for a long enough time, your human body cannot adapt to this.
It's just cooked.
It's just literally cooked. Your brain will overheat.
Your brain cooks.
Right.
Pretty quick.
So there is a limit to how quickly, this is what's being tested on the meta scale. It's like the bio adaptation, which is connected to the mental adaptation of our time. How quickly can this happen? And
like how far can we drop down before, like,
and for what? At the same time, it's like, are you learning to adapt? Like what's obvious is everybody's trying to learn to adapt to intense levels of mental despair and stress. That's a big part of it, right?
Yeah, stress every day and then like long-term despair.
Long-term despair.
That is bleak.
But the diseases of despair are obvious. The depression, addiction.
Yeah, they're already there.
Those are diseases of despair. Suicide, this is a disease of despair. So it's like, but I think there is something emerging where it's like this constancy of this, or like in light of our election, where it's like young people do not believe that there will be a brighter tomorrow, unlike people who grew up with like Kennedy or something.
Yeah, because they never really seen anything that makes them inspired, or like,
what do they know?
They got the coattails of a lot of things.
Yeah,
and those were some pretty bad coattails.
They're bad coattails.
Some of them were like, I don't know, like some of these young kids are really smart or like good at sports and like they're competent, but it's like, I don't know, you're missing something. I understand, like it hurts for me too, but like
but
right, I'll take it from here.
Right. It's real.
Yeah. But I mean, it's also like, humans adapt to that too. Like eventually they'll be able to like feel confident in something that they created or at least inherited and did something with. I think that's what people do.
Yeah. Do you think no matter what?
I think no matter what.
Yeah.
And I think humanity does overcome like sincere hurdles, such as like, I think the fact that over the last 100 years, there's been like a separation from like, not that race is over, but people are moving on from like things that separate each other and separating in like a different way.
Ooh.
I have to explain that because that's like super vague. But basically, race was like the way the U.S. kind of like discriminated and did things for a while. It still affects us today. But it like that whole way of doing things is like not going to be effective anymore.
Yeah, you can't segregate the same way, yeah.
I mean, like white supremacy, like come on.
Yeah.
But what they can discriminate on next and like separate on next is like culture, I guess.
Yeah.
And like
identity.
Yeah, sure. And like the way you were saying before, like what people do, like the biological ways they kind of adapt. Like those will kind of be the people that overcome things too and are like not as discriminated.
Yeah. Well, I don't know about that last part. I don't know what that means, but like I think what I'm hearing is because that's a very interesting observation of like old world ways of division are not as functional, but there are emerging these more, I would almost call them subtle ways of division.
Yeah, but they're stronger and more reinforced and like
because they seem more internal. They seem more like I don't know, internal, because they're also responding to a more chaotic outer structure. You know?
Yeah.
Like it's very.
There are more variables.
Yeah, like if
they're
you
like
have
more intense.
Right. Yeah, I guess I'm thinking like it's very cut and dry, but not simple. If you have like very direct segregation of a school system, right? That's very like obvious.
Yeah.
And like everything about, the police and the dogs and the like this is all very on the nose.
And
right?
that's why like with TV and stuff, like it made it like undeniable.
Right.
And that's why like progress actually kind of happened.
Yeah. And I'm interested of the tension of like also being able to see the world at large. Like that America also was didn't get a lot of news of what is happening in the world. And now it's a global radio station. You know what I mean? Like you can go on TikTok and see what people in Niger are doing right now. Isn't that insane?
Yeah.
And that should be changing something of how you do the math in your head, right? Even because as a young person, or like for young people trying to figure out where am I, what's happening, those variables are different.
So do you think most young people feel disillusioned or sort of with despair, like you were saying, specifically after the election, or say perhaps a majority of young people? I mean,
I heard a report like on Democracy Now! That was like, there was a poll for young people, whatever legitimacy that holds, the poll was like, do you have any hope for the future of America, like, and your government? And it was no. I don't think.
But they don't have hope.
Well, it's like, I don't think this country's going to get better in my lifetime. I think it's going to get worse was the result. And I really only have anecdotal evidence of like a young person that I work with who is so funny, and like his takeaway of American politics, he was like, it reminds me of like the presidential campaign in high school where it's like one group promises chicken wings for lunch and the other group promises also chicken wings for lunch. And his direct quote was, and it's just a scuffle between liars.
Because you never get those chicken
wings. And I was like, I think that's such a good line.
It's just chicken wings, but you never get those either.
It's just the proverbial chicken wings. Yes. And I think and he was like, it's just such a shit show. And he was the first time voter too. And I like probing his point of view because he's young and bright and, he's first gen, and he wants to buy a house, and he's I think he's
think
more.
That's a smart move.
I have no idea. I have no idea.
Like, what do you think about that?
That's what I'm an older person, and I tell him, I joke with him all the time, like, I'm so sorry there are no adults in the room. And he's like, I know. And I was like, yeah, there are no adults in the room. And I'm so sorry that we royally messed this up. And so you're on your phone trying to figure out how you don't get into debt alone as like an 18-year-old. That's real.
Yeah.
That's real. So I don't know. I mean, I would have to talk to more young people directly about, like, to really do like a qualitative data analysis of like, well, what is the, where are you feeling?
Tell you about.
Well, I feel like I'm with my young friend because I feel like they're looking at the world and it's like, this doesn't make sense. All the politicians are old people who are delusional. Nothing that's relevant to me is being seen or talked about, and you guys are talking about a lot of things that don't seem to match up with reality. And like, I think it's amazing to see their consciousness of climate and economy at such a young age be so, yeah, but it's also pretty bleak. And their awareness of that bleakness, I think, is underestimated by older people who still, I think, live in like la la land of like, we can do it kind of stuff. Like, for millennials, man, like, I think there's so much hangover of the Obama years, man. Like, there's so much, and it's like, let it go. You gotta let it go. Gotta let it go.
So, I feel like you're generally an optimist, though.
I don't know if I'm into the idea of like,
I'm not into the idea of optimism.
I
can't say that.
I am at a point where I just be careful with that word, because I feel like optimism and hope is something that's sold to the poor people, of which I'm one, to distract from very
like immediate
direct
things.
Action and direct analysis.
Yeah.
There's a lot of, crystal clutching manifestation shit happening, and I want people to connect that to economic disparity.
Say more about that.
Do you feel like that if I hear one more person talk about manifesting money, I'm going to like throw myself off a building?
Manifesting money is an extreme example.
Right, but it's like this culture on the internet that I'm just it's like an anthropological study more, but it's like
manifesting things.
But it's more than that. It's like trickle down spiritual economics. That people are like, oh, this didn't happen because you're not in alignment with your $1 million. It's like prosperity gospel, but it's new age. And I'm just fascinated.
Like, share this with like 5 friends and you'll be.
It's not even that. It's like, you're the problem because you haven't done the inner work that's going to manifest out as $1 million.
Well, it's like super vague. It's almost like astrology, where it's just like, this could apply to anybody.
And then you get the angle of it that I like to observe, where it's like, oh, well, you didn't make it because you didn't do the magic enough.
It's like telling people to pull themselves up by the bootstraps.
But it's what you would classically call prosperity gospel. You're not praying enough to God, and that's why you're poor.
Oh yeah, I've seen that. Yeah.
But now we have like, you don't have enough rose quartz, and that's why you're poor. I just want to like,
rose quartz taking shots.
I love rose quartz. Beautiful. We all feel good around rose quartz, but do not.
The rocks haven't ever really done it for me. I mean, they're cool.
They're cool.
It,
I'm just
to be
tired.
Around them, I don't mean they're not very lively.
To me, it's just like the part of me that's not. This is why I'm talking about like, be careful with optimism. It's like,
be careful with optimism is crazy.
You need work. We don't need optimism. We need work.
That's not optimism though. That's like delusion. That's just.
But it's infiltrating.
It's not implying work, and it's not implying like.
It is implying work. It's like it's implying you're an achievement subject, of which you need to do the whatever spiritual assignments, blah, 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 usually a Ponzi scheme. Have you also noticed this? Most people are just manifesting Ponzi schemes, which I find hilarious.
Tummy tea.
But it's like, my problem is I need people to start connecting this to global economic disparity. That you know, like this idea of like, it's not providential, the situation that we're in. And
like it's not something that people
and they didn't just happen
can access.
And like why I'm getting worked up on this right now is like, how are you going to tell somebody who's like living in Kinshasa right now, you know, like, well, this is your reality because like that's where your mental space is. Like, how dare you? It's the most Western arrogance.
Yeah.
I've really like, but it's become pervasive.
Yeah, it's like,
and I'm fascinated by it.
You
in post-modernity,
and that's what you can't control.
Yeah, or like, what about the guy?
The most deterministic.
It's yes, but it's also like this whole vibe. But I think it's very Western. That's why I'm also interested in this. Of like I want people to feel both worlds where it's like, yes, it's all hard. It's not great. It's not fun work. But it's like, if you know anything about like Guantanamo Bay and you know, like some of these people get picked up by accident and then they get their head bashed against a wall for 14 hours a day. And like, what are you telling those people? Like, you didn't work on your mood board, bro. You know what I mean? It's like that sort of distance of like, when I'm talking about global awareness, it's like, there used to be this idea of like, well, if I work on myself, this is going to solve world hunger. But it's like, no, this is 2024. Like, you can know the IMF exists. You can know that there are connections, and it's not just like prosperity gospel away. And I've lived in countries where prosperity gospel is alive and well. Like, it's not a Christian thing. It's pervasive everywhere.
But you said it's a Western thing?
I think this like Instagram crystal clutching capitalist thing is a Western thing, for sure. And I'm a little sick of it. That's just really why I'm going off right now, because it's like,
well, I think who your enemies are.
Well, I'm not like, it's not like enemy. It's just like the unconsciousness
the
of
it. Necklace.
These things are beautiful, but it's like the
evil eye.
The unconsciousness of it, if you know anything about history or global history, is to me unbearable.
Well, yeah, because like
I can get it if you're ignorant.
Context, right? You understand,
right? But it's like the minute you know the context, like the minute you understand what the IMF is.
See, but that's the key word, is understand.
Right?
How can you ask someone to understand something that people can't understand things, know things? That's one thing. That's not easy.
But we got to do
Make
it.
people aware. That's very.
But this is the thing, right? We're in 2024. It's like you don't need a library card to understand it, but I say that in the same breath where critical literacy, though, is a skill that need to be taught. Yeah.
Black box algorithm.
Yes. But this is right. So that's like the weird moment we're living in where it's like, you could totally.
Doesn't penetrate those algorithms.
Well, you could get enclosed, right, in the loop of your beliefs. And like everything kind of comes down to like exposure of things that challenge your beliefs. Just to circle back to like what you said about hope, like, there's something called radical hope, which is like a movement kind of based on like action. Don't get lost in the hope, I guess is what I'm saying. Or don't get lost in like it'll all work out. Because to me, what I'm interested in personally is what emerges when you're not concerned about hope and you're not concerned about optimism. You're concerned about action. I don't need to hear about hope.
That you don't have to hope for.
It's like it's beyond that. It's like, let's go beyond that, because if you're living in constant crisis, which is on the table for us, everyone alive on the planet today, right? It's like here on out might be a constant state of crisis, and people need to be a little bit more blunt about this. Like, yeah, it's not normal what's going on. So in order to like what you're saying, keep that Alexander technique alive, to me sometimes it's like, I think dwelling too much on hope actually gets people out of alignment to deal. Like, you have to keep your hand in the wound. Like, that's where we're at, is what I think.
Where do you think people are at?
But I'm going to caveat with this, where personally I'm also at a point where it's like there is a large, like there is an element of carrying capacity that's real. Like, you can only carry so much. Like, you want to zone out. People want to check out. And that's understandable because it's like, once again, to me, that's like wet bulb of our psychology. You're not supposed to know about all these horrible things at once.
When you said constant state of crisis, what are some of the things that you think could change day to day? Like, actually, like analysis of like practical analysis.
Oh, well, like if you got like rent control, like something like that, you like
whatever like the average person might experience differently.
Yeah.
Like in an election context.
Oh.
What's different for people?
I think it's gonna be like access to healthcare. Like, the rent. Those are things.
Those things will become increasingly difficult to access.
Well,
or do you think they may just like kind of remain the same or like follow the same?
I don't know, because now we're like, this is like really new territory.
Right. I'm just asking.
That we like literally. This is our first day of like new territory.
You have to look forward.
I honestly, I really feel like it's beyond like risk analysis. Like the amount of chaos available because of the variables at play now, I don't know.
Like what? Name some of them.
You don't know what the majority of Senate and presidency, that combo, now means. I don't know.
So what are some of the variables you think that, like, what are some of the things that could happen, like, negatively?
Deportation of lots of people in this country.
And how do you think that could happen?
I don't know. This guy's like, you got someone who's like talking about this, like, but that's the thing is like, is this guy serious? Like, he's like talking about rounding people up.
Yeah, I know. It's like,
what?
Do you realize how many people there are and how, like, how would you do this?
But also it's like, aren't they, a lot of these people are doing the jobs that are a necessity for this, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just like you're in incoherence.
Well, basically, like, this is what Republicans are doing. They don't want the corporations getting super rich because the corporations work with the government pretty closely. And Republicans kind of just want to like do their own thing and like go off to the side.
I don't know if I agree with that. I don't agree with that because I think the corporation has the corporation has co-opted both sides.
Like,
well, it's the joke of like you're kind of like the irony, like this is something about incoherence, is like the irony is you might have like where I'm at, they're the contractors now. Like I have an Irish background. The Irish used to be the contractors, right? In like the 60s, 70s, 80s. Now it's like a lot of Brazilian guys, right? A lot, like a good portion where I live now is like they voted for Trump or they were like, we're a fan of this movement. But then the irony is also like they're employing people who would be deported under his ideas. So it's like, you know what I'm saying? Like it doesn't, none of it makes sense.
Because I mean, there aren't any plans.
That's what I mean. Like it's like well, that's what I mean about chaos.
The deportation plan doesn't say like we're only deporting criminals or we're deporting all of them or like women and children excluded.
So it's like, but this is right. And this goes back to like, there's maplessness where it's also the idea of like, oh, you're just gonna like deregulate stuff, and like it's like if your drunk uncle just like took over the FDA. I don't know what's gonna happen. You know what I mean? Like I don't know what's gonna happen.
The federal agencies,
like there's no through line.
If I had to guess, the federal agencies, like the whole big nationwide thing is gonna start to power down because that limits the power of Republicans, and it limits the powers of the states that the Republicans are supported by.
Wait, say that again.
Republicans want to downgrade and downsize federal government so that their biggest opponent, right, like trying to either like put Trump in jail or slow down like some of the stuff they want to do. If they minimize the federal government, they can allow states that support the Republican Party via the college and allow the states to kind of like do their own thing and like almost secede as if many of the states already want to.
Yeah,
that's a large generalization, but that's effectively what has been going on for a long time. Like that's why they want Republicans in the
well, yeah, because you can like, it's like you're collapsing the federal structure.
That's always what it's been about. Republicans have always been about.
Yeah, well, and what's the point? Well, this is
and
like
now big tech, because big tech is with the government. They don't want big tech.
But big tech supported Trump.
Not really. I mean, like money is
Peter
there.
Thiel?
Money is there, but big tech as like an idea, like that is really kind of like opposing.
Yeah, it's complicated because you have the
I mean, like the censorship stuff, like
the
all
coalition.
that stuff is like.
Well, the coalition of big tech and billionaire class and the role of liberal democracy in 2024. Like, if you don't have regulation, which, okay, let's go back, political philosophy. What is the point of government? The point of government is to regulate the market, in our case, in the American case.
Right, but I don't think that's how it's built to people. I think people think of the government, they want to think, you know, almost like a father provider that's like, oh, you know, they help me and like keep me safe and protect me. But it's like, yeah, right.
Well, because it's all business.
Stepdad.
Yeah, it's all business. So, but that's
the government is the evil stepdad if England and UK and.
Well, yeah, because I don't know. I've been meditating on this idea of like, if you're using the mechanisms of liberal democracy to just kind of dismantle it from the inside out for the benefit of essentially kleptocracy, right? Where it's like the elite corporate class. Then, you know, the plebs at the bottom are they're just arguing over scraps that are not even relevant to like the real game. That's what it feels like.
What do you think about borders? Like, I really do want to know like specific things, like what people think about them.
Yeah.
I think there's no right or wrong answer and it's nuanced, but like, I think there's a fair personal opinion from everybody.
Well, yeah, I might not be like the right because I don't
think you have to be though.
Yeah, but I don't. I'm an open borders person. I don't believe in borders.
Right. So, like, what do you think about like regulation of citizenship?
But I'm not like an imperialist. What?
Like, not like a wall or anything, but like people coming in. Like, how do you regulate that?
I don't have these answers. But I mean, you can try, but it's like the idea is like you have to create a system, right, to make it easy. But I because like to me, I'm like the only thing I pull back and I'm looking at like you have to see all of this as part of where we are with the climate crisis, where everybody's an economic or political refugee, and they've come to the promised land looking for what? Because like the idea is like this place is collapsing too. Like there's might not be like anything to find, you know, and I think everybody's just scrambling from a position, but like I feel like the board has shifted so much. And I think that the legitimacy of the country, like this is back like the border situation like 2018, where it's like, you know, we're not that good at like organizing the way that I think the mythology of America is. Like once you got... But that's the thing about like
the United States, and we're not united. I mean, that's the biggest clue.
And like every immigration lawyers that I've known, like they always talk about how broken the system is. So I'm like, I don't even know what actions can be taken within the system that would be useful versus the actions that will have to be taken outside the system, which might become more and more legitimate as this all continues.
Like what? What's outside the system?
I mean, it's like the difference of, are you just going to keep, you know, I mean, if ICE comes and you're a citizen, do you put your body in between the police and a person who would be not protected by the state? These are the sorts of questions. It's like, how visceral does this get? You know, like we're going to see. And then you got like, you know, if I was, I'm not a lawyer, but it's like, you know, there are people who have been working, like who are smarter than I am, who can strategize on what needs to happen.
What do you think will happen?
I think there's going to be a lot of, I think it's the element of, it's like violence. Chaos has a will of its own. Violence has a will of its own that cannot be controlled. So whenever people try and control it, it always backfires. And that collateral damage is what makes me angry as a person. It's the same thing with abortion laws in this country. You know, you had like at least 2 states, Missouri being one of them, right, who they repealed the extreme abortion bans because it's like, yeah, this is a big problem if women don't have human rights in this country. Turns out it affects people. And we got, you know, you can't just like this whole kind of concept of like, you can just do these things and it doesn't matter. I don't know. It's kind of like speechless at this point, where it's like anything can happen. But okay, you wanted to play with women's lives and health for the past like 8 years. You know, you don't know what happened. Women who've like been on the point of bringing point of dying because they have an ectopic pregnancy and they can't have an abortion that's like medically necessary in the moment. Like things like that, where it's like, these are adult conversations that need to go down. And this all feels like pre-K level conversations on a general level. So it's like, all right, but that's an example of like, there was collateral damage. And who cares? Like to a lot of people, it's like, oh, who cares? But it's like that collateral damage is what should make people upset, right? Where it's like, but they might not. Like I remember working a job like you would canvas and like the border thing came up. And a lot of the opinions I would hear from people on the street, it's like you're talking to people on the street all the time, I just remember people being like, the kids are fine. I was like, all right, interesting. Another one was like, I believe in border security. Interesting. Okay. So for that rationality, that collateral damage, it's like proportionality. You know, it's like that look is fine for my ideology to complete. There were a lot of kids who were taken away at the border, went through the system, and ended up in our foster care system. And BT dubs, those kids are lost. Like, they're just in our foster care system. This is how disorganized the United States is. It's like, we don't know. They were separated by their parents, and like,
yeah, they don't know anything.
they're not reconnecting. There are no files. You know what I'm saying? That's on America now. But those kids are just in the system. They're just lost. Whew. And if I was a journalist, I'd be going out and finding those stories. Because to me, I'm like, that's, you know, the great American tale from like something that's happened like 8 years ago, right? But what happens, like that to me is just so... If your rationale is like, oh, but I believe in border security, then that story doesn't have relevance to you, right? Whereas if that story has relevance to you, it's because it's connected to other values at play. Mm-hmm. So, but that's why when I say I'm not a border person, because it's like, well, I'm a humanity person. I care more about humanity than I do about border security, because border security is not interesting to me. Like, I've crossed borders here, and I'm white. I got to cross them pretty easily. I'll tell you right now. But like, I'm humanity first, and I've seen the effect of borders, and I'm not impressed, and I don't support it. You know?
I think that's what a lot of people are, is humanity first.
Yeah.
And that allows people to kind of like justify and rationalize like different things. And it's tough to me, it's tough to be things other than human first.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people who put interests of, you know, say the nation, or say some sort of perceived encroachment on their culture.
Yeah.
Or on their well-being or something like that.
Yeah.
But humanity first is something that I've lived by, and that's kind of like, you know, a creed for someone, you know, just interested in people, whatever. But it gets harder to see like how that shapes up, you know, like how is that gonna look? Because like
the maplessness again. Yeah.
Right, exactly. It's just like so unclear what that could even look like now. Like that's not.
Yeah.
I know that sounds kind of like pessimistic, but it is, that uncertainty is kind of crazy.
But it's good to reflect on it's good to reflect on these things, because it's like sometimes. Right, historically, those are moments, right, where it's like you have to know, and sometimes you don't know until the moment. Like, what do you do? Like, when what would I do?
Happen.
Yeah.
Like during tragedy.
Yeah, or like.
Is that a common thing that you do? Like,
yeah,
but situation, I know I would do this.
I don't think I have the humility to know that you might have a thought and a plan, but in the moment, something else might emerge. And you have to have the humility to also know that, right? Because that's also like why people spend so much time like studying the Holocaust and studying all these tragedies from human history, because it's like, you might think you'll do something, but in the moment you might not. And these are ethical questions you reflect on yourself, and like the Alexander technique of ethics morality, which I think is what needs to become more and more forefront in these changing times. These are questions of ethics. I don't hear like the ethics morality is real, and like we need to, I think, have more open conversations about how that's shaped, and how for each person in their own sovereignty they decide what to do with that. You know, like
that's what like human.
When you talk about that's
can
ethics.
Choose to do whatever you want, right? Is that what you're kind of getting at?
Well, I think humanity first means like you have to have an ethical point of view. You have to be thinking about ethics in a moment, which makes it.
Where do ethics come from?
That's a good question. I mean, a very smart person I went to school with once was like, "Do you think ethics come from rationality?" I think about that statement all the time in my head, because it's like.
But rationality is also subjective.
Well, I don't know. That's the thing. It's like when I try to understand somebody's
it's like
point of view.
Something, but you're cutting it with your hand, so it's going to be slightly off every time. It's like your rationalities are going to lie at different.
But you also have groups of people who end up at the same point, right?
Yeah, you can mostly rationalize things correctly.
And do those people, like the fact that it happens multiple times, does that mean that there's an underlying current that connects people to come to the same conclusion?
Ethics.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
This is just food for thought, because and like if somebody else looks at that at the same picture and they have a different takeaway, their calculus is the breakdown of what that calculus, how that's different. You right?
Were you good at math? You said calculus. I'm like,
I took calculus. I feel like I talked my way into getting into calculus, but I had such a cool teacher. She was just like. I remember
if I took calculus, because if I did, I'm scarred for life. I erased it from my memory.
Yeah, because it's not like, I feel like algebra and stuff is like more useful in life or something. I don't know. I don't remember calculus being like a
metaphor there, or it's like you do things.
No, but I can't remember a single thing from calculus. Besides, it was kind of like, it was very meta. It's like meta math. That's what I remember calculus being.
Yeah.
And like, parabolas.
This means that and equals. And it's like, all right,
yeah, like who knows?
And the formulas.
The
y mx plus b. What was that one?
Oh, yeah, but that was it. That was a formula that you could just plug in.
Mx plus b.
You could just plug it in. That's what I remember. That was like a relief. And what did you talk about that one time? Math sets?
Oh, yeah.
I want to know more about that.
Set
theory. What is that?
So it's basically the blocking and compartmentalizing of sets of knowledge or sets of things. It's not even really knowledge, it's things and how things interact because they are within a set. And if you know these things, then you know things logically.
Right.
That's it.
Okay. Wait, there's so it's just, but is it always two? It's always like a binary, like interaction of the two sets?
Oh, I don't know.
Okay, we gotta look this up.
Mathy.
Yeah, I want to look this up.
I get the general idea.
Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah.
Everything fits into a set one way or the other, so as far as we know.
Yeah. Huh. I have to look into this. Okay. This is going to be delicious homework, I think, to deal with, because I'm connecting it to like how, like my interest is not, like I'm interested in how people are going to like dig wells together, even though they do not have the same value system, if that's possible. That's my interest in life.
Same value system is different than a lot, because then it's like, well, if they both value well digging, then maybe they can put the differences
That's
aside.
A great point. I think that's a great point.
Yeah. Can they
rationalize
hard work or like work or
right.
something outside of themselves that's not linked to their identity or their community?
Yeah. Because we've entered there's like
value well digging, those might be the best fucking friends alive.
Right? And then it doesn't matter, like,
it makes it better that they have different values because they can share and exchange the values.
And that's more interesting than I think that's way
what culture is.
Right.
What do you share? In New York, you share an island.
Right. Yeah, everybody's here.
Yeah.
Everybody's here, and that
everyone plus one. But
everything. That tension is more interesting than I think what's happening now, which is like this kind of pseudo tribalism.
Block, yeah, it's not tribal because it's not tribal. Kind of implies
it's like postmodern
action done together.
Yeah, it's like this idea of like I'm like on this team.
You like the ideas that others may also have an idea about. Because ideas,
but everybody doesn't really know any of the nitty gritty because it's like there's like a corporate block at all times.
It's too much distraction.
Yeah, so that's what I'm interested in, that tension more than like what's sad to me is I feel like a lot of conversations like politically in this country are like, to me, just feel like junior varsity or something because it's so not. It can't be deep, and you get to like
the game gets
Achilles
bad
heel,
disorganized.
Yeah, pretty quickly. you know
that is very funny.
That's what I like. I don't think I'm alone. I do not think I'm alone. I think just more people need to voice this. Yeah. That we want a better level of conversation about what the fuck is happening right now.
Yeah.
All around. Like, I think people need to be more upfront and not like what happened, what I observed like in 2016 and stuff, so where like people just were like certain classes of people, I think the white middle class particularly was like stunned. The only people I know who were surprised by Trump's first election were white people. So I'm like, and I don't think that's going to be the case this time around, but like that, and then there was like a lot of energy that was like wasted trying to like dissect the election, which is also boring to me. Like, because it attenuates energy that could be better spent.
I find it interesting the same way I find like sports interesting, where it's like I don't love the X's and O's necessarily. Sometimes, it's really good, but I like the stories, the narratives,
right?
And, like, the lessons to be learned and like the falters and stuff,
right?
And even marketing slip ups and all that stuff. The hero's journey.
I mean, like, what's an example, like a political example to me is like
where do you think the Democrats went wrong?
They've been so wrong for so long. It's like
that's their slogan.
Yeah, wrong for so long. But it's also a little bit like fuck you to the little people. And like at first I was like, I guess like 8 years ago I was like, are they just pretending to be this out of touch, or are they this out of touch?
Yeah.
And I think they might be just out of touch.
I think by now with the camera, did you see that?
No.
Ugh.
What is it?
Top tier cringe. No, I mean, it was just Harris at some like rally or something like that. She was on the phone with a voter ostensibly, and then she shows the phone and it's like on the camera and it's like no one's on the phone. So I'm like,
yeah.
She's like, oh, thank you for voting.
Yeah.
It's like a press moment. It's like, damn, like even that is insincere.
Yeah.
Like that's
and it's also, and you can't.
And like the TikTok videos and stuff. It's like,
right. Because you can't. This is the difference to me. It's like the energy that the Democrats spend basically belittling what is becoming, the real like highlight to me of this election is people are stressed about their living conditions more than anything else, and they responded more to the prosperity gospel, the bullet dodge me because I'm here to save this country narrative, emotional tick. That's a more compelling story than what Kamala and the fake phone call is doing for people, right?
Dodging the bullet really is some biblical type.
And he's using that, and people are like, yay, I was spared. That's what he said. I was spared to save this country. Who is that pandering to? And the Democrats...
Wicked smart marketing. Oh my God.
That's what I'm saying. Because it's like neither team has given solutions to problems at all.
No. They float around ideas that are maybe better than others.
And that's the fake phone call. All the Democrats' problem can be encapsulated in that fake phone call. And like it used to be, that's one thing about the hangover for Obama and the millennials. It's like, we can do it, And it's like, no, bruh. Like, no one's trying to do it.
Ad-libs.
Yeah, ad-libs. But nobody's trying to do it. Those drone papers were real. Like, okay, like Obama's singing Amazing Grace. He's making, a tote bag class of people feel really good.
He's super charismatic.
He's so charismatic.
And he's a speaker, so it's easy to...
But you can't...
It's like,
now with his Audible, like, it's like you overplayed your hand. Do you remember Ferguson?
Yes, but wait, first, explain the Audible thing.
Well, he does like Audible books and stuff like this.
Oh, he does serially.
Yes, so it's like...
Oh, he knows what he's doing.
That's what I'm saying.
He's like, I'm trying to live in your head as the voice of morality.
Right, but it's also like, to whom?
Familiarity.
To whom?
Yeah.
And it's like...
He never paid allegiances to anyone except the United States.
And it's fodder for like boomers, right? Democratic boomers who are like... yes, we have a leader, but it's...
Bro, Obama, look, I loved Obama's story. And I do love Obama's story.
It's a great story.
And I often, I almost build an archetype for myself following a lot of his steps. He was a community organizer and, got into politics.
Yeah.
And knows history and, he gets it.
Yeah.
But then it's like, how well do you get it?
Yeah.
If this is what you do and what happened there.
Establishment politics, yeah.
What happened? It's like, you
what happened?
Seemingly got it more than anybody else and you were poised to do it
I'm sure the CIA did something.
They cloned Obama.
But presidents come and go, but the defense department is forever.
He's the Democrat.
He's the Democrat, but it's like figurehead politics, but it's like why I said Ferguson was it was like you had young black men on camera being like, fuck Obama. And to me, that was that should have been a highlight to everybody.
Yeah.
There's something happening here. Yeah. Then we need, that needs to be spoken about.
What do you think Obama would have done during Katrina? That's such a fair question that I'm like,
oh my God.
You can't ask something like that because it's such a what about.
Yeah. It's kind of a non-starter, but, I don't know. I guess I've so little because I just don't buy
Katrina
it.
was a New Orleans failure.
Right.
I'll start with that. To be fair. It's not but the levees were built by the feds. So it kind of was their fault.
Yes.
And they were not trying to
and the levees
They took a week to pull up. New Orleans was flooded in 15, 20 feet.
And what did how many versions of Kanye are there? Remember old Kanye? Remember Kanye who was
George Bush just not caring about black
Remember that guy?
Yo.
Remember that guy?
He
remember that guy?
He got it. See, that's what I'm saying. Kanye, Obama's you get it. It's what are you doing? Or
but this is how
is this just a bridge into Act 2? Really?
But this is how I think mind-fucked America is that you can see in Kanye West. His arc, the character arc of Kanye West to me is Americana.
He is the child of America. He's American culture. He's the Midwest.
Remember his phone thing where this
heartland.
This is how I knew that guy had no friends. Remember when he was in Trump's office and he put his password into his phone?
They were friends for a little bit.
And it was all I was like, oh wow, nobody's taking care of this guy. So that's what. But
taking care of him.
That arc.
He either gets taken advantage of or he takes advantage of other people, and both are.
But
really
people
bad.
forget that was such a oh my God, what a radical, crazy moment from Kanye West to put that on camera. That seems so quaint now.
Yeah, now.
Remember that?
Nah, for real. I think people believed better from Kanye and stuff like that, and they had this idea of him, but it's bro, he's always been kind of crazy. I mean, once his mom died, he's kind of crazy. Yeah. Before that, I mean, not really. He's just kind of visionary type dude. So it's he's following a trend, and he's more powerful. So of course he's gonna push.
But that's the thing. It can happen to anyone. Where it's you. To me, it's just a fascinating case of you started here, and yet you got to there. It can happen to anybody,
including the country.
That's why to me he's the ultimate American arc.
He's the countryman.
He's the ultimate postmodern America, Kanye West. Yes. You know?
Deadass. That's why I rock with him 1,000. Kanye is the GOAT. I'm not gonna lie.
Did you see the video of someone who worked for him? They're these are these things where it's in the trash can of internet culture. I'm losing the thread of what's going on.
I have a scrapbook of internet culture. Early YouTube.
But do you remember in 2020? In 2020, there's this weird video on the internet of someone who works for Kanye West trying to intimidate a poll worker in Georgia. And I was like, why did no one investigate this further? Because it's just insane. And it's on a cop's camera. It's like, this is what I mean, where it's like, you can't make sense of a lot of things that are happening. There are too many. This is chaos.
It's not supposed to make sense, though.
Right. But that's not helpful.
Things made sense for a long time.
But I don't think anyone's going to do enough meditation.
For people listening, because like nothing ever really made sense, but it felt more like...
It felt like there was a structure.
Yeah, structure.
And now it feels like there's no structure. But my concern, it's the same way like when you spook horses, you don't know where they're going to run. And that's how it feels like when people under pressure...
Oh God, that's like a scary visual.
Because you don't know how people react. And this is what feels dark about it, is like, you know, the best is going to come out and the worst is going to come out.
Is that what you think?
Yeah, I think because that's what it always is. It's always like about a 50-50 shot. What will bend? I don't know. But the problem with chaos is like, you can't do the risk analysis.
True.
And I think we're all kind of sitting with, okay, yeah, if you can't do that, what do I do next? Like, how do I sit with this? I'm gonna need your salt water.
Yeah. I think over the last 4 years, I've felt not just a lot of despair in terms of like, just like a lot of learning and understanding about the way things are. So that's given me a lot of despair.
Okay.
But I feel as of the last, say, year or so, that I understand it, or I really get it, and therefore I can't really damage like a control.
Yeah.
I can not turn the plot. I feel as if I know the path forward, despite all of like the
chaos.
Yeah.
Oh, what do you think that is?
I think I thought about things very closely and carefully for years and predicted things, or like expected the worst of things, or kind of like projected into the future.
Yeah.
Enough to where these steps almost feel familiar, even if they are riddled with chaos.
And that gives a sense of calm, maybe?
Oh yeah,
okay.
Absolutely. I felt that for a while.
But what can you elucidate some of the formula of?
I am more confident. I'm also more plan-based now.
Okay.
So I guess I have more confidence in my plans.
Okay.
And I've kind of simulated them enough.
Okay.
To where I believe very strongly in my chance to secure what I want. And I think in my domain.
In your life, yeah.
Yeah.
In your domain, your sphere of influence, your sphere of concern.
Yeah. Anything I can reach.
Interesting. Okay.
And that's a lot of things.
Yeah. Oh.
So
that's cool. Yeah.
But like that's in contrast to things that seem like super uncertain, because they felt that way for a while.
Do you feel like you need
almost 5 years ago? That was super uncertain.
Right.
So I've been thinking about this.
And do you feel like you need to put like the carrying capacity thing? Like you need to, like there are certain things you can't concern yourself with, or you can't give attention to. Like you have to, in order to just stay focused on the plan. We're speaking generally, but.
Wait, ask it again.
Like in order to maintain that focus on the plan. But do you think you have to not give attention to
other things
amidst all the chaos that is connected?
Oh, of course.
Okay.
You minimize. You sort of concentrate your focus as if it were a laser on one point. Okay. And if you burn through that point, you just move on to the next. Maybe not necessarily linearly, but they're probably going to be close to each other.
Interesting.
And therefore, you're kind of like building this circle, punch through the wall.
Punch the wall.
Yeah.
I mean, I think your attitude is like what we will all have to be cultivating.
Right.
At all times. And I think we're going to have to do it together.
Yeah. And I guess that's just what I'm saying, is that I feel ahead of the curve, as I usually am with like stuff.
As I usually am.
No, I mean, I am. Honestly, I mean, that's not like a super flex. It's just kind of like my domain. Like that's the way I am. Like my default.
Okay.
My default is kind of like visionary and
Yeah.
like being able to see the way things will pan out based
Right.
on like human patterns and behavior.
Yeah.
As I get older, history. I'm just good at that kind of stuff.
Right.
Like, it's like a larger scale intuition or whatever.
Okay.
I live very much by like my gut, what I eat, where I'm at, spirituality, like whatever angle to know self.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
you know that, and you know the environment. The environment is not, it's more static than you. So you can learn that pretty easily if you are a really dynamic person and you learn yourself.
That's a good line. Do you think the environment is static? More static?
It's more static than you if you are a dynamic person. If you're a static person, then you know you're no better than the environment and you're a victim to it. If you're a super dynamic person, the environment's nice because
Like adaptability.
It's static,
yeah.
but you know, if you're up here mostly, you're gonna be more dynamic and like unpredictable.
Okay.
But you know, like it's crazy. Like I know myself so well that like I know things that I believe or say or like whatever are very foreign to people, but they're actually not. They're just like a few years ahead.
That's good. I mean,
Like with many things, like with health or like housing stuff,
right.
or just like things that I know really well that I also enjoy, that I read about, like anatomy and stuff like that. It all kind of connects one way or the other.
Right.
And I know about a lot of those things. I can't say I know a lot about, well, I mean, with sports, for example, I can project things in sports based off like how people are. Like in football, it's really easy, like quarterbacks.
Yeah.
It's like you see what kind of person they are. And you kind of project that towards like who's good or like talent.
Right.
I was showing you these jerseys. Like there's a reason I like these players as a
Right.
kid. It's like, why these random players?
Yeah.
I can tell you why now. Because it was the same way that I felt back then. I just couldn't really like articulate it. So you know yourself really well. You can adjust that to like anything that you encounter pretty much. Because you are the thing that's like difficult to control, so to speak. You're like chaotic and like unpredictable and non-linear. The environment is not necessarily linear, but I mean, in many ways it is.
No, but that like that's like
not-
self-sovereignty. That's what I'm hearing.
Right, yeah.
That's what
That's kind of like what I think about when I think of humanity, is like
Yeah.
liberating that.
Yeah.
And
Same.
that's why, that sounds like a commercial, but like I really do believe in AI. I don't know AI from who. I don't know AI from like what origin, but like I believe in the ability to make human life more human in this context with AI. And I believe that taking away, I don't want to say labor, and I don't want to say effort, but taking away things that are like almost universally ethically petty.
Like what? Like give an example.
Oh, I mean, anything that anyone thinks is petty or non-enjoyable, like a task, like
Taking that away.
eliminating that on a universal scale.
Right.
That like the most basal level of that, you know, AI is very complex. So even saying AI is like very vague.
Right.
But things that can help humans do
Things better.
more of what, yes.
Like optimize.
Perhaps better. I'm not even going there yet. I'm just saying the things that they don't really like doing that don't have an intrinsic obvious purpose.
Right.
Other than like kind of testing you and, you know, building in some discipline.
So
or
is
will.
in that, sorry, is this in this theory? It's like because if you take that away, more energy will open up for the human.
More attention and effort given to things that are uniquely human, which is not something like task solving,
Okay.
because even animals can kind of do that.
So what would be more hyperhuman than task solving?
Creating.
This is beautiful. It is really good. I'm realizing as you say this pretty cynical. Just because. Okay, let's just push.
I think there's a theme here.
Well, it's just a push of like. Just because we've been here before.
With what? A new
Humanity.
technology?
Yeah, we've been here.
That's the thing, is like, you got to look at who's at the forefront, right? Let's look at AI. It's the tech dudes.
Yeah.
They haven't been given their big, social media is not that. It's like, okay, and they failed that. Their next thing, do you trust these minds to do good
No.
and do good well?
No.
Right.
Do you?
I don't know. I'm going to try to be optimistic.
That's crazy.
But yeah, it's hopeful. It's delusional, but you got to be.
But
What
why?
else are you going to do? Like, they're unstoppable. Like the AI can't be repealed.
But
Big
what's
tech
what's
can't
going to be the
downsized.
check of that? Google fires every ethicist that walks through their door and finds problems immediately, and then they're like, well, we're just going to fire you.
Well, they're trying to like blow Google into like a bunch of different parts now, which they really should. It's too big.
The anti-monopoly movement.
Right. Okay. So this is what I'm saying is like.
But you see the hole in that.
Of course I see the hole. Like
Okay.
I came from the hole.
So
There's still hope.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay.
And you're like, there's still hope, and there's still like, there's some promise.
But what your hope is for what?
Is for people in charge of deciding the future from a tech perspective,
Okay.
doing it good and doing that good well.
Okay.
They already try to do things well in the sense that like that makes money.
I think Elon Musk believes he's doing good. I think he legitimately believes he's doing good.
Musk is in a different area though from
Is
the
he?
AI thing. He's right next door, but he's in a different area.
They're all. It's not the club is not that big.
It's not a big club, but they're in different rooms.
But those rooms are in the same building.
Yes, for sure. But that's what I'm saying. Like the AI thing specifically, like it's Sam Altman who's right next door to Elon. Like Elon came up with the AI thing.
Yeah.
I get it. But what I'm saying is like, and like Microsoft, or like Facebook.
Yeah.
It's like, do you trust these individuals
No.
to create something like good in
No.
the sense that like
I'm just gonna say no.
works well
No.
and that it creates opportunity for people?
It's so easy. No, because it's like you've already been here. It's like Microsoft is a great example. I don't
But
think.
isn't that anticipation?
No, it's
Like the
it's
movement
you have the
anticipation.
data. You have the data already where Bill Gates should not have any influence over health systems in the global south.
Yeah.
That's what these mechanisms of power that are a minority of people.
He used to be wild. He bought mad farmland in the U.S. I'm like, yo.
But it's like, why does this guy
I think
have that
I'm
much
3
influence?
steps ahead with that. Like, oh, I want to farm. You know, like I want to
Right.
have a commune with people that I care
But
about.
I feel like I have
Bill
to
Gates already over it.
interrupt your optimism of like we are looking at tech feudalism
Yes.
and like what's going to be the check
Do
on
you
that?
think there's you know, the hole in my logic?
I do
is
not
that, do you
have-
think there's a hole in this situation?
I like
where
how you
people
already
can
saw
escape?
that. Well, that's the problem. If the brave new world that's emerging like
Protagonists.
concretes itself, you don't know how locked the gates are going to get.
True.
And there
know
are
how far they'll
chaotic variables. I mean, we're talking about like starvation variables, where it's like when I say junior varsity, I'm like junior varsity because in America, this is the richest country in the world. In the world. That's a crazy concept, right? Okay, so maybe you're going to be a little buffered by the reality of, let's say, climate collapse. But if you're in Pakistan right now, that reality is there's no present. It's not about the future. It's about there's no present. So when we talk about these things, there's too much the fortressing of the West where it's like the chickens come home to roost one way or another here. And I don't think the tech feudal elite will care about the majority.
No.
It's about using the system for the benefit of minority.
Yeah, that isn't the question though. Like you know
I don't- but
how
the-
they feel probably.
But I
like,
think
not their morality.
the more opaque the system gets, the less opportunity for the escape that you're talking about.
For the
a
majority.
human will do you a favor. A computer is not going to do you a favor.
Right.
So once your healthcare is allotted to you by your algorithm, who's going to get around that? Like people in the Depression survived because other humans were doing them a failure. I mean, a favor.
What about people who are independent of the system, or as much as you can be?
What do you mean, like off the grid? Like that guy who lived in a...
I mean, you know, if the future's unpredictable, where are we headed towards? Like, you know, it's a fair question.
Yeah, I think you might have a plethora of options.
What if that's like a large swath of people who are like, I mean, off the grid, whatever that means, like somewhere where like they are kind of independent of the system.
I think, well, there are people who want to do that.
And that's like a way of escape.
And that will be like, that's the thing. It's like, well, should they have the right to do that? Probably, right?
I would say so.
Yeah. But now it's like, for example, what's an example of this? Like van life, which is like glorified homelessness in America, right? Where it's like people living in vans. But parking and all these things, this is like, there's all tax.
That is not as cool as like the vagabond lifestyle, which is like train hopping.
Okay,
like
this is okay. I'm gonna. This is what I'm gonna insert. As a woman, we're thinking differently about when the lights go out. You feel me?
Oh yeah, sure.
There's no vagabond train hopping for women. You know what I'm saying? Like there is no glorification of this. That's another reason where it's like, oh, okay, this small group of men in charge of tech feudalism. Great. It's not. There is no liberation in this. I sincerely believe that these people think that they are doing great things. Elon Musk, I think he really believes his own stories. That's what's fascinating.
Well, I mean, you have to believe your own stories really to be anybody.
But when you don't know that you are the perpetrator of dark forces, like, and there's no check on you.
Yeah, that's
what happens next?
Like when you willingly know that there isn't a check on you and you still do things that you know you should be checked on or that you could be checked on. It's like you're getting over on people. And all of this is getting over on people. Like the system is broken, but right now it's not like, well, let's fundamentally fix the system. A great example is like you have oil companies now that are trying to co-opt movements towards quote unquote green energy. But that's just because they need the status quo to stay exactly as it is to make the capital they need to make. It's not about transition to clean energy. It's about how is Texaco and all these companies going to make the same amount of money or more than they did 10 years ago? While you're selling to the plebs this story about how it's going to change your life. There are solar panels on mobile gas stations. How are we not like connect those dots? You know what I'm saying? Like it's incoherent, but it's also like that's why I'm saying beware of hope. Because it's like hope for whom here? Hope for whom? If the person driving this, because it's a very small group who have a lot of power and influence, I don't think good things come from that. I don't think, like, historically, that's never been the case. And the fact that they all look exactly the same, also not boding well. Not boding well. We have profoundly broken pieces on the floor. And I don't trust that those people are going to pick it up because they're doing exactly what their role has been for a long time. I mean, but I'm saying this as somebody who, I don't believe those people fundamentally believe in human equality. I do. So we have a difference. That's why I'm not going to trust them for our AI future. Because that's a really good point. That's a really good point to gauge somebody by, which is like, do you fundamentally believe in equal human rights or that all human life is equal?
And they don't. And I think we need to bring that up more.
Right. Because that's kind of the one that would knock people one way or the other. And it's like, okay, let's see what this is really about.
Because I know, like, you know, I went to grad school. Like, there are people who are willing to spend their life sitting in rooms with military contractors to negotiate a little more time. But the cost that takes on people, because you're literally in conversation with, you know, it's that famous quote, power concedes nothing without demand. But it's like, you can't demand that people see your humanity because you've already lost it if you're in that conversation. That's why it's like, you're not going to convince Elon Musk or Peter Thiel or any of these characters that like humanity, you know, matters. You've already lost the conversation. So the fact that they get to have more influence over the entire conversation, even though their values are not the same, is a fundamental problem. And when I say tech feudalism, I mean feudalism.
Mm-hmm. Because they believe that there is some inherent disparity.
They do.
Yeah, I'd have to hear it, but I also but
that's because it's all. That's the thing. It's like it's all numbers. You know what I mean? That's what I'm talking about. Bill Gates and, you know, global South healthcare systems. Because it's like, well, it's a way to make money off of faceless people in the global South. Do I think Microsoft and Bill Gates should have like a say over the world? No. Because I believe in human sovereignty, where people should be deciding their own decisions, not some fucking white guy in the West. Because he's rich? What's that? These are fun.
Money can get you access to.
But you're accessing what I said before on the original podcast was you got to create a problem to exploit a problem. So if you want to control if people get malaria medicine or not, because it's a business, that's a very dark business, of which I do not think hope is in the equation.
How does he, if you know, determine that? Like, what's the system there?
He has a lot of buy-in with the World Health Organization. And there are people have done a lot of good journalistic work of like, this is kind of a lot, you know. To me, the more troubling issue is like the Gates Foundation, right? I'm not really sure how that a lot of that information is vetted, because their whole thing of like the reason you should be giving us a lot of influence and money is because we're, you know, deworming orphans in some unknown area of the world or this or that. And it's like, maybe, I don't know, because all of your data is from within your organization. So
yeah, there's no way to know.
There's no check. That's what I mean. There's no check on it.
Right. That's, yeah.
And my thing is like, shouldn't like, I don't know, Mozambique have a little more say about what's happening in Mozambique than Microsoft? If you really, like, that's the thing. It's like, do we really believe these things? Like, because we talk about postmodernity, like a big part of this is like, you know, how much dominance do you believe the West should have? In the majority of the population of the world is not in the West. And the West has to acknowledge that. And they're scared. Everyone's scared, right? Especially those forces that, when people talk about borders and stuff, it's like, yeah, why are people leaving, right? These different places of the world to try and come here. But it's like the majority of the population is not here. And the majority of the population must live a whole life in the next coming centuries if we make it this far. And what's going to happen? Like all the patterns of the civilizational model, the Western imperial model, cannot hold anymore. It will grip itself probably into our extinction because it won't let go. But if you're really about it, like, it will have to let go. But then that's a psychological journey of like, how willing are you to let go of like Western modernity as a psychological conditioning? This is deep stuff.
Yeah.
This is very deep.
Shedding the matrix entirely.
Because I can see the person in Niger on TikTok. He's not an idea, right? So it's like, how do I make sense of this? Like, if I'm in France right now, how do I make sense of my government's relationship to Africa? And the fact that the government of France, you know, holds all the currency. So you can't have legitimate conversations about like African monetary sovereignty, right? Like, it's just like, it's not even about junior varsity. It's like, we're not even in the room of like where
we're not.
So, and that's why, like, no, don't worry about hope. Just worry about...
Don't worry about hope.
Worry about lucidity. That's what I'm more concerned about.
Okay.
Because lucidity, it will have the same effect, which is action.
I think that's what I was remarking on.
Yes.
That I had a ton of lucidity for a little bit.
For a little bit.
I tried mushrooms for the first time last year.
Good for you.
And I really saw a lot of things clearly. A lot of lucidity in like my life, history.
Right. Making connections. Yeah.
Realizing stuff.
It's real. It's good.
Yeah. Clarity.
It's good.
A lot of clarity. But that's why I'm like optimistic now, because I kind of like use that clarity to see things, to see a path forward.
Yeah.
Like I have a map forward. You know, like all these things you're saying, like I'm tooting my own horn. Like I have plans, you know?
Which is beautiful, which is good. And for your like sphere of influence, sphere of concern, that's what you need, right? And if you have like millions of those, that could, you know, interesting things might happen.
Spheres.
But that's the idea of like the spheres need to be, you know, vibrating whatever they need to do. Not giving up critical literacy to...
It's like those rooms of bells or cups. You like...
That's right.
And then they're all like... Ooh.
So you get resonance. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what you need.
Hey, on that note, I'm going to take a break. The famed lost episode.
We'll always have that. You and I, yeah. Well, in our memories.
I lost an episode
yeah.
of this podcast in which we introduced Alana as the new host. But that podcast is lost to history.
It's kind of poetic, but it's, yeah.
We definitely talked about energy dynamics. I remember that was like
that was the key word
that you mentioned.
That was the key word.
At drums practice.
Yes.
That was very resonant and described the feeling or notion that I understood, but I didn't have words for. And you just casually dropped that. You were like, energy dynamic. And I'm like, that's the whole thing. That's everything. Everything's... And it's because we were talking about drums and like the shared energy and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And that reminds me of the Alexander technique thing, which is like, you know, you have bones, whatever, it's all kind of the same. So when you're humans, you share that whole connected energy. And like you're playing with the same form and stuff.
Yeah.
And the ancestors come through and make it all.
Yes. Yeah. It's all because, because a lot of the cornerstone of that is about being in space with others. And
sharing that autonomic nervous system electricity.
Yeah. You're not isolated and everything is resonant to itself, right? There's no, and you live in the, you know, the nuclear, you know,
the pheromones,
physics age. Yeah.
The spatial awareness, all that stuff.
And
like
you feel it.
Peripheral vision.
Yes.
You can, some people can't really access those kind of perceptions, but they're all there at the same time, which is crazy.
It's just awareness of it.
Like you could hear your blood rushing through your veins if you listened hard enough.
Right.
It has to be quiet enough, probably, but you know, in here you can hear it.
Yeah, and this
my own thoughts sound very similar to that. It's just slow down! Help!
I know. It's
too fast.
There's so much happening. I know it doesn't stop.
Like SpongeBob running around with the filing cabinets burning.
It's like that, and that little cat. Meow.
It's like 2000s nihilism. It's
yes. Yeah.
That was like 1999. That was it's like, fuck, it's over.
And so I know Y2K.
SpongeBob. I mean, that's as nihilistic as it gets.
You don't have to rewatch. I have to rewatch it now as like an older person.
I think you're gonna say reread. I was like, no, you don't have to do much intelligent analysis with SpongeBob's prose.
I have to really sit down with the literature of SpongeBob and.
I mean, the first 3 seasons of SpongeBob are like very critically acclaimed, but also like artful. And very accurate in terms of like capturing.
Does it change?
Human stuff.
That's what I mean. I feel like I have to go back.
Cartoons are good at that.
Yeah.
You know, like even the ones that are wordless, especially the ones that are wordless, they're very good at illustrating and evoking these emotions that are familiar in these situations. Like, I could see myself in this one.
Right.
And it's like, this is what I would do. Or it's like, oh, SpongeBob, you always do that.
Yeah, or it's like illustrated
emotion. Or the
jokes
on Squidward. You know, it usually is on Squidward.
Right.
Or Plankton. Because it can't be on SpongeBob, and it's kind of sad.
That's a good point.
And it can be on Patrick, but it can only be brief, and it can only be something innocuous. That to Patrick is quite large, or that's quite large, but to Patrick it's innocuous.
But that's like the
losing your home to Patrick,
right?
Doesn't care. Losing a piece of a chocolate bar,
right? Big, but losing your home to Squidward,
no,
deep.
Squidward,
that's a deep.
Landlord.
That's right. Ooh,
Patrick in the basement apartment gets flooded during Katrina. Never gets his reparations. It's like, hey, Patrick, are you trying to unionize with us, my brother? My good brother. You see that guy up there? He has a house of himself.
But that's right. How would you get the Patrick to, you know?
How do you organize and recruit the Patrick?
Right, because there are many, and they're focused on a chocolate bar, maybe.
You fix their potholes.
Right. You got to connect with what is important.
Give them the chocolate bars.
Give them the chocolate bars.
Give it to them. You say,
right.
You deserve that.
Right. And but you have to be also like, I'm here that this is important to you.
I am your servant.
Well, I don't know about that, but like you have to.
Yeah, I mean, if we're talking organizing and
like public servant.
I mean, yeah,
public servant. All right,
that's the attitude you go in it with.
Right. Why do you have like a great concept of service? Why is that? That's not normal.
Sacrifice is something that I think is necessary and important, and I value it. And I know that sacrifice does not have to be that big. Sacrifice is just kind of a perceived setback, for lack of a better term, to share or provide for someone or something. It helps you build, it helps you create, it helps you provide and nurture others. It's like a really good way to do care, and it's free.
Wow.
Service is free.
Service is free. But I mean, I think you have a great sense of service,
I also went
which I don't think is
a
necessarily
Jesuit high school, which really values service and the concept of being men for others.
And do you think being like so young and seeing that like kind of brought that into your consciousness?
I was in high school.
Yeah,
so I was
young.
Yeah, sure. It like, kind of developed me. But in my young years, when I developed like my sense of the world and values, like religion was not far off, but it wasn't really, I wasn't going to church.
Yeah, but the habit of
believing in God and like that sort of thing, that's the same thing as being good and kind.
Right.
And service is the manifestation of that. Like God's word or service or like
I'm just wondering if it's like because like if it's a habit.
Living the kingdom, living the word, like spreading the gospel. It's all like that's action based. There's no other way to do it. If you make it literal, then you're an evangelist. If you do it, you're a Jesuit, or you're just a good person.
Just do the right thing. But that's not. I guess my
There's
point
always
is like,
a right thing, and if you always do it, you're.
Why do you think that? Because I don't think a general. I don't know if that's across the board, and I'm curious why you feel that way.
Because I mean,
how do you know? You feel that there's a right thing. This is ethics.
Because I've been instructed
based on
my experience, my inheritance, who I know, what I know, how I feel it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I feel chosen. I really do, to be good and kind. I know it sounds like super crazy, but that's what I believe about myself.
I think that's really cool, but. A part of me, no, I'm just like, because I don't think...
It also just is the way that I am.
Right.
It's. I mean, if you zoom out, you can really see it, but...
I'm probing this because it's like, is that because of the interaction of like your upbringing with the Jesuit high school?
I think it's a lot deeper than that.
Okay. How deep?
As deep as it gets.
Like prophetic?
Yes.
Wow, okay.
I think it goes all the way back and all the way forward. It's a continuum, and I believe I rest somewhere on that continuum.
In the continuum.
I think everybody does, but I know my spot. And my spot is to be kind and good and provide.
Wow.
And like however I customize that is, me, my life, how people will remember me.
Wow. That's beautiful.
That's what it's all about.
Here. That's what it's all about.
Like nursery rhymes hints at this.
Right.
Like Santa wants you to be good for goodness sake. Why? Not for the gifts, bro. Because if you do good for the sake of gifts, you still gonna get the gifts, but it's not gonna hit.
Yeah.
Or I'm gonna give you coal for being greedy.
Right.
Right? So it's like, just do good because you should.
What do you think of people who think that there is no right and wrong?
What? Like, how do they believe that? Like, in what context do they believe that?
I think they qualify, like, is there really a right and wrong beyond this moment, or is there just
There is a sort
choices?
of universal kindness in the sense that, like, do not disrupt others. Do not, like, cross into their force field.
Yeah.
Physically.
Which is respect.
Or directly or indirectly.
Which I feel like is all just respect. That's like...
Respect. And a lot of time it's physical space. We're apes. It's like, why are you in my space?
But that goes back to energy dynamics because it's like, wait, we do have to share space.
And people don't know how to do that.
Yeah.
And
that's a learned...
Yeah.
That's something we learn. We have to learn.
Yeah.
To peacefully
we copy other people's sort of behaviors and dynamics that we see.
Right.
And we apply them to others who may not be experienced with that. Taurus. People who walk with their whole strollers covering the whole street.
Right.
The person who steps on you and looks at you and then looks away.
Right.
Like that's learned.
Right.
Is it conscious running through their mind, like the sentences about what they're doing, the consequences and where it came from and why they didn't know? They just do it because they know it.
You think it's unconscious?
Do they want to do it? I don't know. I don't know how people think. I don't try to think that anymore. I know the way I think. I know some other people who think similarly in terms of my ideas. I don't know how the engine works for anything else.
That's
and I
interesting.
really know this one.
That's really cool. I get that, because I get that point of view. But I think because knowing you, it's like, I think it's great and interesting that you have a sense of what's right and wrong. What I'm interested in is, I don't think that is inherent to people. I think sometimes it must be taught.
Well, some people are evil, I believe. So,
yeah?
Yeah.
And do you think that's like
the inability to see, or like the ability to see, and in spite they still do the wrong thing?
Right. For power? That's a wild guess.
Can't think that way.
Right. But you just know where you are on the battlefield.
Yes.
I'm
there to bring the message.
That's cool.
I think of myself as a leader and a champion. Mm-hmm. A champion doesn't necessarily mean like I win all the time. It just means like you are like the champion of something.
Right.
I like to champion different causes. I don't really think I'm there yet, but I like to kind of like do that. Fake it till I make it type of thing. Causes and people and like ideas, cultures. That's my biggest one.
Yeah.
I am a champion of cultures that I value because they seem kind of niche, and that's how cultures are. But they're actually pretty strong, and I believe I'm champions of them.
What does that mean?
Where I come from, who I am, and how I am in the context of my environment makes me a champion of it, because I'm
like your own culture, like in
sure, but like where I come from, like literally where I was born and raised, and have influence on, and like the places that I went there and stuff. People's definition of champion's also different, but in my case, I think it's the best kind of champion, which is like, I don't know, just being like the leader. I just prefer that spot. Leader or like representative or something like that.
Yeah.
Because that's like where the most of the action is at.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm taking this all in.
To some people, like, it's kind of funny saying it out loud, because like I've believed this for my entire life.
Yeah, but
saying
cool.
it out loud
I think it's
sounds
cool.
almost like crass.
Yeah,
I mean, a lot of people might feel this, but like I really believe this, and I live it, and I'm trying to prove it more every day.
Yeah.
And not for the sake of proving it because I feel the need to. In fact, it's always been the opposite. Like I've never felt the need to prove things. Right. But like if that's my role, then it's like that's what you're supposed to do. It's like prove it, take action.
Yeah. I think it's cool. I wouldn't say crass. I think I think in the world...
I'm saying very arrogant things while trying to sound humble, because like that's more my domain, is like humble. I can be arrogant if I have to get a point across, but
also we kind of live in an age where, if you're also just trying to say like I have an ethical point of view and I really believe that, I think we live in a kind of a nihilistic time where also you're not supposed to say that.
It's a privilege to be able to think this way.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying. I'm incredibly privileged. Like I'm chosen for that. Like, sure, you could say I've carved this over, however many years that I've been conscious, but I'm very much in a slot, and I felt that way early on. Like this is
because these are your values.
Yes. The only time that I didn't feel this was the way was when I abandoned my values and really changed myself at one point and saw depths and realized I don't really like it down here. I'm going to go back up. And now I'm here. And as you mature into a man, like I'm 27. So it's like, I just a few years ago was like very stupid.
Yeah.
So now it's like, okay, you step into the role. You're given the role. It's not really that much competition. Like people don't compete for leadership roles or like roles with responsibility or anything like that.
Yes. Yeah.
So I didn't want to do it. I'll tell you that. Like people used to be telling me to do things from the time I was young. I'm like, yo, I just don't want to do that. It's like I'm already doing enough. It's like, no, but you can do more. And it's like, okay, now that you're a man, you just have to do that. Like you have to do more. You have to say yes to more and lead more and like sacrifice. You don't want to do that as a kid.
Okay, yeah,
you can in spurts, and it's there, but like I've always been like very attuned to that signal. Your gut is hundreds of thousands of nerves
initiated
that connect to either other people's autonomic nervous systems or to the ground that you're on, like the environment that you're in. In New York, it's concrete and classrooms and parks, so there's not that much like connection that way to nature. So I mean, but you connect to other people pretty well.
Yes. That's awesome. I mean, I think that's great. I think this is, but it's like an initiation. I think for men, probably that's a big, and that's harder for you
I
guys.
think a lot of men want to feel this way.
I do. I agree.
I think they want to be competent leaders, or
Yeah.
like be able to be decent at something they care about.
Yeah.
At least competent.
Yeah.
At least. That's, I mean, it's almost like basic human right. Like,
Yeah.
I deserve the right to test my competency.
To test your life, as a friend of mine would say.
Right, yeah.
You know, to take your life to test your life. Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. And I think for purpose, and that purpose will drive you. And
The purpose is the one that you customize.
yeah.
Right? That's what I was saying before. Like, I'm instructed with the edict to do good.
But
And what is good?
I love that because what we've been talking about is like, I don't think that's necessarily inherent in all people all the time, in anyone at any time.
No, and I used to think it was. My problem
Me too.
was that I always thought people thought like me.
Same.
I
Mistake.
thought people understood things. And yeah, it was a big mistake that I'm still learning to this day.
Yes.
And I'm
It's
still
a human equality thing.
learning to stop
Yeah.
projecting anything, whether or not it may
Right.
be true, because it does not matter.
Right.
And therefore, it is not true.
Right. But I know my occipital location, and that's really all that matters in order to be able to move through the field.
Yeah. All you're doing is moving through space.
Yeah.
And it all starts here. That helicopter.
That
It's so crazy to think of it
That's
like
C1, yeah.
that. And it's like slow and controlled. The word that this instructor used is glacial.
Glacial.
That things move at a glacial speed.
like your water.
Right. Fourth wall is crazy. That's how like the body is supposed to kind of move. Like it's not moving slow.
Like you
it's
glide.
like a large thing
Yeah.
that's kind of like moving one at a little time. Because I mean the bones are pretty small for the most part.
Right.
We got some little bones.
We have a lot of, yeah.
These bones are so big.
And this is the longest bone in your body.
The
is here.
femur.
The femur.
The femur
Yeah.
is also the strongest. It's like a baseball bat.
Wow.
How are you gonna break that?
God forbid.
I know you can't.
Yeah.
Yo, injury is crazy. Like, out of all the things to be afraid of, you know, not to have fear of these things, but all the things to heed,
Yeah.
injury is one of these things. Like, it's so prevalent and it's so tragic,
Yeah.
but it's also in that same vein, like, instructive because it always means something. It always has a context. Injuries don't happen in vain or randomly. If you take an incorrect step, if you drop something, let's say you drop
Okay.
something,
Yeah.
you made a mistake. It's a mistake no matter what.
Right.
Whether or not you boil it down to, I was thinking about something and it dropped. I saw something and wasn't paying attention to my hold.
But is this, I'm sorry, continue. Sorry.
Or if it's gravity, right? Even if you blame it on gravity, like it was just gravity. It's like, okay, that means you were affected in some way, that you made a mistake.
But isn't this also connected to the ethics belief, like that alignment, where it's like the suffering will come when you get out of alignment? Like when you're like, I got down there and I didn't really like it down there. Like
Okay.
I'm gotta, maybe I want to go back to my values. This is what I was talking about before. It's really, do values come from rationality? Where like the rationality being the alignment of your spine in this metaphor. And do you, when you stay in that alignment, that rationality?
Well, it's not always like the physical alignment. It's sometimes just like, you know, you took your mind off what you were doing. Your mind can really only focus on one thing. So that's why I
Right.
use the example of dropping something. So like, say I'm holding my phone and like somebody walks in the room while I'm kind of already thinking of something like disarming. And I'm disarmed by another presence because I'm thinking about something. My posture, so to speak, is kind of out of line.
Right.
And I am quickly moved into another anticipatory movement,
Yeah.
which makes me drop my phone.
Yeah.
That's the way all mistakes happen. They are not random. Injuries are not random. They are almost metaphorical when you look at them. The body tells the story of where it's walked. And so if it's biased towards something,
Yeah.
if it turns a certain way,
Right.
if it continually does the same thing, it's like that came from somewhere.
Right. 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 Right.
So injuries are not at all incoincidental. If you look at them in context, whether it's an own injury that you've had or like an athlete, it's like, damn, I mean, there's a reason they call it the Achilles heel. Like, he didn't rupture his Achilles.
Yeah.
It was like, you know,
Sliced.
like shot, like messed up by something else. But it's like, well, that's still what happened.
No, you're right. Yeah, that's so interesting.
And the way the Achilles tendon works, if you don't have it, you can't move. It moves everything. It moves your whole leg and your feet. So it's like when you lose that, you kind of lose everything. And that's why it's like, you know, hubris is the Achilles heel. Because it's like, if you do everything right, so to speak, and conquer everything and like take advantage of people, what's gonna get you? The heel, the little thing in the back. Like, there's no escaping anything. Like, their evil cannot persist. It's not possible. Even if you do it right, like I said, I'm saying it with quotes. If you conquer everything and do what you want via evil, Achilles heel has to get you. It doesn't have to necessarily be a heel injury, but your hubris is what will sabotage you, self-sabotage in that way. But with injury, I mean, all right, I think of like Kevin Durant. He tore his Achilles heel, his Achilles tendon. Aaron Rodgers, same thing. Like, these are the kind of guys that, like, they're almost like similar in how they play. They're really great, but like they get in the way of themselves.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it's hubris. Hubris is self.
Yeah.
I veered a little off track. I mean, it's still within the same vein, but like, injuries and mistakes are the same thing. They should not happen.
But knowing yourself.
Right. And why do they, like, let's say a more practical example rather than like the metaphors. Somebody who walks a lot, but walks with bad shoes.
Right.
They're out of alignment, so to speak. They're used to walking a certain way. You change shoes that are good, and now you're still walking with that bad, like, positioning.
Right.
You are more likely to get injured because you're putting yourself in the same position that's not good for you.
Right.
You're anticipating, like, I have these shoes, I need to walk this way.
Right.
You know, this can be changed eventually, but that's how injuries happen. You sit all week, and now all of a sudden you play flag football on Sunday.
Right.
The
accumulation.
Cold,
yeah.
Right? That's kind of the practical reason it happens, but it's not used to activating.
Right.
You don't activate it often enough for it to be like elastic and able to do these explosive things.
Right.
You think you can do it. You think. It is an idea. You try to execute the idea and your plan fails. That's what an injury is. That's what a mistake is. People are not aware of their plans, or they don't have one, but mistakes happen to people who step off the plan. It's the only way that a mistake exists is if it's off the course of a plan. And that's where injuries and mistakes happen. Like, to keep that theme, because it seems like they might be random, but it's something you did beforehand, either in the plan or, you know, the way that you got there. You didn't just
Well, you have
appear.
to, you're
You didn't
like,
just spawn in the game.
because then you reflect on, but it's all the little elements, like your SD card story, right, that lead to an outcome.
Every little thing. Sometimes they're bigger
Everything
and more
matters,
obvious
right?
than others.
But everything matters, I think, is the big takeaway of what you're
Right,
saying.
because in hindsight, you can see the context, and it's like, I see like 50 different variables, and they seem equally important. It's like, because it's in context.
Right.
So when you make a mistake.
So but that's the thing about being unconscious. Circling back to group dynamics, when you have unconscious people kind of like in chaotic disharmony with each other, but the whole group feels that. As opposed to, like, for example, when you're playing music with a group of people, your action in that moment is you're getting into resonance with each other. Mm-hmm. And in doing that, the resonance of the people also clicks in.
Yeah, that's what I feel.
Yeah. That's what I think about all the time. This is my favorite topic.
The clicking in is the crazy part. Because then when you click out, the whole thing clicks out and it's like that.
They say, miss the crossing. Which I think is a beautiful saying.
Oh, it's painful when I hear that. Like, you miss something.
You
like
miss,
that feels
I know.
like loss too.
Right, but the idea is if you can find it again, or you're always living in it, and the idea you're going to be so attuned that you can hear.
That's where I'm trying to get.
Same.
I don't know how to get there. That's why I'm like.
You have to listen.
Is it
deeply?
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Like, I know
Constantly.
the right and wrong choices. But that doesn't always lead me to like this sort of like physical inner peace connection with the world. Sort of.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes personally,
I don't think it's going to happen passively, though. I think that's what it is. It doesn't happen passively. You have to actively
move
and express in space
Yes.
in order to make things happen.
And you also need to be, okay, where I'm at is we need to be doing it socially. It's hard to say that in this day and age, but it does not happen in isolation because the practice of doing it in group is profoundly powerful.
People hate each other more than they should. Like, you know, it's tough that you say like, oh, socially, and like that's like a hard word or whatever, because like people don't like to socialize. They don't like new people.
Yeah.
And like I felt it before, but again, I'm on the other side now, and it's like
I'm on the other side.
people are awesome, and interactions are challenging, sure, but they really are important.
Yeah.
And like it should feel obvious as it's happening, or at least afterward, but people don't, like, they forgot that, and they actively dislike.
And it's
connection and engagement and vulnerability and stuff. And it's like, damn, I thought that would go away. I thought it went away quickly, like in 2020. End of 2020, I'm like, oh, this is gone. And I was like, damn, like y'all are still not gonna recover from this?
Because there's a lot
5 years later, like I lost all hope.
Right.
For that.
Right.
You know, like the socializing thing. I'm like, my people, I'll try to work on them, but vast majority, like what's gonna unite people enough to like
that's what I mean. That's what I mean. It's a practice. It's a practice, and like you can look at it generationally, where if you don't have those cultural norms, where
the norms are gone.
People had a social dance in the town or in the city.
Anything.
That doesn't happen anymore.
There's no sociality, if that's even a word.
No, the idea is like for isolation to be the default.
Like in New Orleans, like there's so much of this community togetherness. Like I don't even want to say community togetherness because that's like a next step. Like I said sociality. I really don't know if that's a word, but that's what I mean is like
you Shakespeare'd it.
People being social to the point where it's like an event and like sharing something. It's like it doesn't even have to be a community because it's like, what if I never see you again?
Right.
We can still be highly social.
You can
like,
still,
all right, well, I'll see you later.
Yeah, but this is like the Muslim concept of like you can make paradise right now. It's like the Sufi Muslim idea. Like,
yeah, I mean, and that's kind of the way
you make paradise in the moment.
It's like what I have right now is like it's almost like a video game server. It's like random. It's like whatever you do with it, you'll get from it, and you'll never get that again. And that's why, like with people, like in New York, that's how I play it. Like I try to treat people like part of my game,
like which
is like. Okay, what am I trying to do with people? Be good. Can you do that in every moment? Yeah. But, you know, some moments you devote them to friends or like doing things.
Yeah.
People you interact with, you're trying to do good by them with like a smile or a conversation or like, for me, it's not always those things. Sometimes what I can give to people is relaxation because people can be intimidated by me. People can either be intimidated or like really like antsy, and I can be like an engine for more of that. And I'm like, if I try to really relax myself, this will diffuse.
Energy dynamics.
Right. Yes. I feel that extremely powerfully with like everything in existence.
Yeah.
Especially other people, and especially other people with different conceptions.
Right. Because that's also where you and I are at, where it's like the different conceptions together in a room. How do they not get nervous together? Like that's what I'm thinking about. Like, because that energy of nervousness in groups, you know, to dissipate that
it starts with one.
Right. And that's responsibility.
Yeah. And
self-responsibility.
I like that. I like that position and that responsibility.
Yes.
And I'm good at those things.
Because if you're responsible for your own energy in that moment or your own values.
Attention.
And then you're co-regulating.
Yeah.
This is what we talked about.
Yeah.
Is co-regulation.
Co-regulation, yeah.
Of the group.
Yeah. And to me, the best way to achieve that is by leading. And so like I can kind of customize how we get there. But at the end of the day, I'm trying to co-regulate and like, you know, lead, not necessarily even by like what I believe, just kind of like what I think is good.
Right.
And good for that group.
Yeah.
That's the best way to lead. Like, you know what? I think
because that's not individualistic leading, that's leading for the collective.
Right. Think about this with Samba. That's why I like it a lot. It's not like, you know what's funny? People are so like computational. Like I'll tell somebody about this and they're like, oh, do you have any solos? I'm like, what are you trying to figure out here? I'm like, are you trying to assess my status amongst other people because of my ability to like play solo or not?
Yes.
Right.
Status.
And it's like, how exposed are you to like, you know, personal vulnerability?
Yeah.
I'm like, that's not the way I'm seeing it. Like, one,
Yeah.
I just started playing this.
Yeah.
I really enjoy it. But the
Yeah.
way I like to lead is with energy. Like, you know, when we're
Yeah.
performing, I'm like, I feel tired, but this is a cardio thing at the end of the day too. Like, if I push, we can push. If I play super loud,
Yeah.
I play the bass drum. Like, it's really
Yeah.
loud.
But it's also a form of service, because if you don't
That's exactly
stop,
what it
you're
is.
keeping the cross
Exactly.
alive.
But it's not always like, you know, the leader
That's how I
of the
feel about it.
band, like how John or Evo is.
Right.
It's like we are all together doing our own parts, and if something sounds off, you know,
Yeah.
it throws things off.
Right.
But mine is like at the bottom. It's kind of like the bottom of a box.
Right.
So like if that falls out, the whole thing kind of falls out.
Yeah.
That's how they described it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, damn, why'd you give it to me then? But I'm like, well, that's kind of also what I want.
But it's interesting because normally people start on that.
Right.
They start
because
at the
it gives
base.
you like that's the same way like in football.
Yeah.
They make you start like on offensive line or
Right.
like just getting really physical. It's like
Right.
you don't know what you can do yet, but like start
Do
here.
this.
This is the foundation.
Yeah. Foundation.
It's the foundation, yeah. And foundational stuff is like what I've been all about for a long time.
Yeah.
I've been about building villages rather than building skyscrapers.
Yeah.
And now I'm trying to build some skyscrapers. But when you build some skyscrapers with the permission of the village, you're good.
You're good. Yeah. 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 Yes. That's like, it's like the word copacetic just came to my head, but like, I think, yeah, it's because it's resonance. It's this idea of group resonance I think about a lot. And I think about it in terms of like for leadership, like, because when you get people end up leading themselves, if the practice space of self-responsibility is allowed to practice enough.
Right. People lead themselves because they want the best for themselves, and they probably know the best for themselves.
And if they know that's in relationship to whole and to collective, then what you're getting is a constancy where the energy is always going to balance itself out, because you have now a number of people who know that that's the role, is to create the resonance.
And I think what we're looking for in life, or at least I am, and not everyone thinks like me, what I want is for people that I at least care about or that are in my immediate space,
Yeah.
or about a cause that I care about, to have that sort of resonance with either their own communities, with each other, or with themselves. You know, like that
Same,
sort
yeah.
of autonomy,
Yeah.
that they are armed with all the tools to be good and do good for others. Like that
Yeah.
really is the goal.
Yeah.
That's the kingdom of God. That's what they talk about. You know,
Yeah.
you said there's the Muslim
Kingdom of God is
element.
within. Isn't that the quote?
Yeah, it's like it's within because you can make it
Yeah.
out. You can express it.
Yeah.
You can share it.
Yeah. It's beautiful. It's real. Because when you feel it, because you and I have both felt it, I think that's why we're here now.
Everywhere you cross paths was you can
Yeah.
talk about the kingdom or try to bring
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, it sounds like I'm being like a missionary because that's kind of what they say. Like they'll say
Yeah.
it this way, and I'm like, why are you being so
Yeah.
you know,
But it's
whatever about
liberation.
it. But it's like, yeah, it's showing people it's like, yo, you know, it's easy to be good at this.
Right.
At life. It's easy to be good at life because it's easy to be good.